Hey astronauts, this is Brandy and welcome back to Astro-Tarot Research. You know what time it is? It is time for the June 2025 reading. We have 5 pals to choose from. We're going to talk about love. We're going to talk about career. We're going to talk about finances, and we're going to get an overall general vibe. If you're not familiar with my channel, I like to combine astrology and tarot to read cards and energies and etc. and give you beautiful messages. My name is Brandy, if I didn't already say that, and I post a new video every Thursday. And also, if you want to get a reading from me, feel free to check the description bar to see if I'm currently offering private readings. And if I'm not, it's okay, because I go live every week. That's either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And I will have that time posted on the community tab. That's right, the community tab. Check that out by Tuesday night Eastern Standard Time. So that way you guys can join the live session and ask me questions about what you want to talk about. So let us get into these cards. Oh, and don't forget, links to social media are found below. Now let's jump into these cards. We have pile number 1, pile number 2, pile number 3, pile number 4, and pile number 5. So let's not waste any more time and just sit back, relax, and choose. Hey pal number 1, let's get started on your reading for your month of June. This is the 2 of Swords and represents you, where you're currently at. The King of Cups for finances, the Moon for career, Hangman for love, and we have the 6 of Wands for overall feel of the month. Plus we have our Astro dice and an Etc card, guys. Let's roll the dice. We have the Sun in Capricorn in the 4th house. A lot of Sun 4th house energy with these spreads lately. Now we're going to pull these Etc cards. I am shuffling them away. These big giant Etc cards just to get more of an overall energy. Okay, this card wants to come out. We have Punavarsu, the Jupiter ruled Nakshatra, the first one, I believe. All about that freedom of expression. I think I even made a post on it. So, what we have here with the Sun in the 4th house in Capricorn. So, the month of June, there's obviously this feeling of wanting to have possibly more at-home time. When we see the Sun in the 4th house, obviously the Sun represents you, the ego, and things along the lines of that. It can also represent your career. And what I want to start off with is obviously you. And when I see the Sun in the 4th house, this sort of represents maybe even needing some time to refresh for the month. And the home is likely to be your sanctuary and your zone. Now, in the sign of Capricorn, that sign that wants you to grind away and work hard, possibly you're putting in some work into your home. You know, it's still springtime, spring, summer in the month of June. So maybe you're wrapping up some spring cleaning, some rearranging of the furniture. Some of you might be moving. Some of you might even, sometimes it can represent kind of like traveling to a different location, but that's only if you're staying at that location for a certain amount of time. Like, let's say you were a college student, you were moving back home for the summer. This Sun in the 4th house energy can definitely represent that. So I definitely want to throw that energy out there. This can also, I want to say, represent some sort of conflicts within the home. You know, the Sun is known as like a half malefic planet, meaning there's a lot of positivity and happiness and joy associated with the Sun. However, the Sun is also very fiery and fierce. So it may feel like that in your home, there are certain things, certain ways you would like things to be, and you might be in conflict with maybe some roommates, family members, etc., neighbors, who knows, you know, you're just like, oh, these people are kind of getting on my nerves this month. And that can be the sun's energy, very much like that. I will say though, in the sign of Capricorn, the energy is more stabilized. Capricorn is a sign that has to do with, you know, endurance, hardship, but then also leadership and taking charge. So maybe you are laying down some new ground rules within the home. And if it's not literally your home, then this can be your emotional state. The sun in the fourth house can represent that you are deciding to put your mental health first. For certain, when we have this sun in the fourth house Capricorn energy, it's like, hey, I want to stabilize my mental health. I want consistency in this area. And you may even be using material things to help ground you. Certain things like, oh, I'm going to soak in the bath to give myself some peace. I am going to develop a workout routine at home to help alleviate stress. I'm going to read a book, whatever the case that you do at home, but it can represent developing some routine at home that brings you a sense of stability. This can also represent, you know, highlighting spending more time with families and even childhood friends, as the fourth house does connect to early childhood. And then also, maybe this is for a more smaller portion of you. This might represent spending more time at home, like a hybrid type of role, or maybe you get a job that you work from home. And that is something that you want to keep in mind when we talk about the sun ruled energy. But I do want to say, like I said, the sun is half malefic. And so there is this sort of like anxiousness when it comes to the sun in the fourth house, meaning at some point you're like, oh, my home is my sanctuary. I love it here. I'm a bit of a homebody. And then at certain points in the month, you start to feel a little bit antsy and you're like, I got to get out of here. I got to go do something. I have to explore. I have to go out and celebrate myself some way, somehow. It is all about, I've got to go, 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 go. And then I've already mentioned working from home, and it doesn't have to be an actual like 9-to-5 job that you work. This could actually even be something that is your hobby that you may make money from, or you're developing, or something along the lines of that. Okay, but I do want to put an emphasis on wanting to work from the home, wanting to feeling a little bit of antsiness and trying to, you know, get out of the home. There is 100% that energy there when we look at all of this. You know, if I look at certain sun transits to the home, some people often end up traveling during their little sun transits. And it doesn't have to be like a big travel. It could be like over the weekend, you know, I took a trip to see a concert, or I went to a festival or something like that, for like a 3-day break. But it's like, I want to break away from the home at some point. And so keep that in mind for this month. And then I've already mentioned sort of the rejuvenation factor when it comes to the home. Lots of self-reflection, lots of transformation. We have to remember the sun always represents a new dawn, a new day. And so it does represent building new routines, especially since it's in Capricorn, within the home, or even thinking about your long-term ambitions, finding yourself reflecting on that, finding yourself actually even, what's the word for it? Maybe applying for more jobs, or even thinking about different ways that you can strategize and bring long-term stability or notoriety to yourself. There's just a lot of that going on, or even just educating yourself through the home, because we have to keep in mind the sun rules the sign of Leo, the house of education. It is also the house of romance, but given that we have Capricorn, and Capricorn's not normally known for being super romantic, it may not even be that portion of the home. But I will say though, sun in the fourth house does bring a sense of rise of leadership and responsibilities in the home. So keep that in mind, where you may feel like you have some more duties at home, or you find yourself being more responsible for getting certain tasks done. That's something to think about when it comes to that. But Also, as I mentioned before, the focus on the health factor is there with the long-term emotional and mental stability. The fourth house is our peace. Generally, I see fourth houses to be very emotionally transformative for a lot of people, and then for others, it may be physical, and sometimes it's a bit of growth, a bit of both, but it is growth, yeah. 100% this can represent some sort of emotional growth, and the sun likes to highlight issues. It kind of likes to think of solutions for problems. So if you have had some struggles with mental health, especially since we have that sign of Capricorn here, bringing its own weight and structure and sense of responsibility and ambition. It's just like, I want to be able to tackle this. I want to be able to make some strides in my mental health, whether that is you uncovering some diagnosis because the sun reveals things, or you uncovering a new way to give yourself some mental peace. So there's that. Now, when it comes to the Two of Swords here and where you're at, we know that the Two of Swords represents making a decision, and sometimes it can represent things coming to a head or being at a point where it's like a bit of a standoff in a sense. So if you've had some conflict with an individual, then it is reflecting in this card. Or if you just feel like you're at a place in your life where you might be a little bit lost and confused and you need to go within to find guidance, there is that. On this card, we have two people divided in half. So this can kind of represent maybe feeling like part of you wants to do this one thing and the other part of you wants to go in this other direction. And you have to choose between that. You know, even on this card, we have some sort of like a weapon kind of like aiming at this plane in the sky. So this can represent, I would think, some inner turmoil. Maybe you're viewing your options and you're thinking more so what could go wrong, weighing out pros and cons of a certain decision, or even a life goal or trajectory that you're trying to go on. Doesn't have to be that deep. Maybe you find yourself just feeling a little bit, like I said, lost lately, a little bit confused, a little bit uncertain about the future, and having a lot of anxieties and worries, and you just feel like you just need to step back and think about things before you get too riled up in the possibility of things not working out. The Two of Swords is definitely 100% that energy, but it seems to me that you are letting your intuition guide you these days, that you are deciding for yourself like what is going to be the best path, and trying to step a little bit away from logic, or even combining logic with the intuitive. And that's something that maybe you are trying to find the right balance of, and that can be something that can be difficult to balance, okay? So the Two of Swords definitely represents, like, you know, the problem isn't clear, the solution isn't clear, the step forward isn't clear, the path isn't clear. So you have to let your intuition guide your choices. Things are not as clear cut as they seem with the Two of Swords. And I also want to say the Two of Swords can represent feeling like you are in a passive state, a stalemate, like things possibly aren't moving forward and you're not sure what to do, okay? There's a bit of, I don't know which decision or which direction will lead me to the most happiness or fulfillment, and I don't have a blueprint for it, and I don't believe that I can seek guidance from other people. And there's a lot of distractions around me. There's a lot going on in the world, and I think that I need to step back and trust my inner spirit, okay? That's the energy that you're coming with right now. For the month of June, when we start getting into the finances, the King of Cups isn't bad with finances, but you know, he's not the best, right? He's not a pinnacle. So the King of Cups kind of lets his intuition guide him on what is correct thing to do financially. I think another pile, we had someone else said intuition guiding them when it comes to the finances. Excuse me, I'm trying not to sneeze, guys. Trying to like stop myself. Anyway, but as I was saying, The intuition is guiding your finances with the King of Cups. You're taking in a very emotionally mature perspective. It's showing me that you are somebody that has an intuitive understanding of your needs and your desires, and you are allowing yourself to not let your emotions control your spending. Like, you may have an understanding of like, oh, when I get a rough day, I like to go out and, shop online to make myself feel better. And then you're like, okay, now that I know this about myself, I'm going to do my best to not do that and try to regulate those emotions. Or this could be something like feeling like you have someone there even to be emotionally supportive of your financial journey. Maybe even someone to remind you that you're saving for something big. Maybe you're just reminding yourself to keep control of your finances and saying, hey, you know what? I have had a history of impulsive buying or making quick snap judgment, because the King of Cups comes from like that Knight of Cups and that Page of Cups energy. And it's all about being able to say, you know what, I'm not going to just waste my money away based off of my emotions. Yes, I'm going to allow myself to enjoy myself with the King of Cups here and have some fun social outings with friends, but I'm not going to do too much. I know my limits. I know what's going to make me feel uncomfortable. And that's another thing with the King of Cups when it comes to guiding the financial decisions. This can represent that you are knowing what would make you comfortable spending, what you would be comfortable spending, and what would make you feel a little bit uneasy. It's kind of like intuitively knowing your financial limits. It's like saying, okay, I know I would feel comfortable if I spent $50, but if something costs $100 or $500, I think that would put me in a little bit of emotional distress, so I'm not going to do that. And that's a bit of that emotional regulating when it comes to the finances. I would say that, emotions and finances definitely go together. People have a lot of financial trauma. For example, you may have had like a parent who would always, if they miss something, like let's say they missed a soccer game and they made it up to you by like taking you to a toy store and buying things. And so now you sort of associate buying things for yourself to make yourself feel better, to make yourself feel, to pacify those emotions and things along the lines of that. That happens to people, right? Where they associate certain feelings and emotions with certain experiences from their childhood. And this could be a month of making those connections, or this could be a month of truly taking that in and allowing yourself to remind yourself why you used to make certain financial decisions, or why you no longer want to move in that fashion based on any sort of financial trauma if you have gone through that, and keeping that in mind to allow yourself to feel good about your finances. The King of Cups feels great about their finances. They feel like they are making the best choices for them. They are allowing themselves to stay grounded in their financial decisions. And they always say, like, let's say you were into like investments. They always say a lot of the reasons that people end up losing a lot of money is because they might pull out of the market because they have a lot of fear. Okay. You may not invest too many things, but I'm just giving an example. And so with the King of Cups, this is not allowing fear to motivate your actions when it comes to financial decisions, or even going in a certain direction because of greed or envy. Like you see something that someone has and you're like, oh, I want that too. Let me buy it to show off and have people think that I'm, big money. You know what I mean? Big man in town, big woman in town, big woman on campus, whatever the case may be. It's like saying, I'm not going to do all that. I'm going to make the financial decisions that are correct for me, that are emotionally grounded, that doesn't let my emotions cloud my judgment. So these are all important things when it comes to how you are spending this month. And then also with the King of Cups, it also represents spending money on more social social events. So with friends, with family. If this was a wand, you know, this would be about I'm spending money on my passions, versus cups. Since cups really connect to like personal relationships and connections and family and then your emotional world, this can represent, hey, I'm spending money to go have dinner with friends and family. You know, I'm spending money to go hang out with my loved one, my partner, my spouse, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, and we're going to hang out and watch the movies together. And that's something we enjoy too. So it's like I'm spending money on experiences and bonding, and I'm creating memories with the use of money. And that's very King of Cups. Now for the career, this is very interesting because we have the moon here, and the moon can create ups and downs. It can create a lot of confusion within the career place, and it's starting to make sense that maybe why you have this Two of Swords, because both of these cards can connect to confusion. And then we also have this fourth house energy, which is the sun in the fourth house. The sun is not really in the best place in the fourth house, I should say, not to give you any like anxiety or anything. Like the sun in the fourth house doesn't make your life miserable, you know, get real. But talking to more myself with get real. But it's just like the sun is not shining its beautiful self. It's not showing off to the world. It's not at the peak of the chart. It is in Capricorn, so it's liking that. But it's like nobody can really see me shine here. Like I'm a little bit invisible. And it can even feel like that within your career, because the moon represents this dark space. It represents the things that are unseen. And so maybe your light is not shining as bright this month. Maybe you're not getting the accolades that you deserve, or maybe there's just a lot of confusion and uncertainty going on at work. Sometimes companies and jobs restructure. There's a lot of instability right now in the job market. Lots of people are getting laid off, and it can feel like, oh my gosh, are we going to get fired at some point? Am I going to lose my job? Is my position secure and stable? I don't know, because we have this moon card here as well. It's about facing those unclear choices and being in an environment where things are very hush-hush. So leadership could not be very open or transparent. Your supervisors may not be open and transparent. Heck, maybe even your coworkers. I don't know what the environment is, but the moon can create a lot of secrets, a lot of things being hidden behind closed doors. The moon 100% heavily creates to like spying and secrecy. And if you saw my moon rule study, I talked about how, you know, this Shravana heavy filled year had a lot of spies, you know, had the most spies out of any year, versus like a sun ruled year. There were a lot of spies, and it seemed like there were a lot, but they were just mainly getting caught. Versus a moon ruled year, there were just tons of more spies out on the field, but they weren't known about until much later. So the moon energy is much more secretive, and you kind of have to read a little bit in between the lines when it comes to work. There's a lot of unsaid behaviors. The moon sort of represents social norms that are not typically discussed. It's very much read the body language, read the room, follow your intuition, pay attention to people's actions, pay attention to people's words, how they dress, how they move. It's all about what's unspoken, okay? It's all about the things that aren't typically said. It's about dropping hints. I have met moon ruled people who will literally, pretty much all of them, will drop major hints or light hints until about how they would like to get a message across to someone. They might make like a Instagram post or a Twitter post, and they're not going to at the person. They're simply just going to post it, and it will be like a message for a certain individual to get through to them. So like I said, it's all about reading in between hidden messages when it comes to the moon. And so work can feel like that. You may feel like you have to play detective here for this month at work. On the positive side, the moon does represent ups and downs in a good way. So that means that there are some positive moments happening in the workspace. Now, typically when I see positive moments for the moon, I could see sort of more like a lot of more social acceptance, a lot more validation, a lot more compliments. But it's interesting because, like I said before, I don't think that people are, or at least the higher ups, are noticing your shine as much, but you may get a few compliments and things from colleagues, or maybe just a few individuals, but not a lot with this month. But it does represent social acceptance and validation in a way. So there may be some of that going on, or at least a sense of bonding, because the moon does connect heavily to relationships, partnerships, people connecting, and things along the lines of that. It's a very social energy, I'll say, with the moon card here. So I know that it can represent having some really good moments at work, and then things along the lines of having like people bring in food and connect in that way. That is something that would be very moon-like energy. Being someone who feels like they have certain people who can watch their back. The moon can also represent feeling a strong sense of company, feeling like you have created a strong bond with at least one individual here. So that's something to take note of when we have the moon when it comes to work. Now, if you are looking for a new job, I will say that the moon can represent trying to find different ways to stand out in front of the competition. I will say, though, when I've seen the moon, it's generally like people will gravitate towards you. It's about sort of people coming to you with job offers and things along the lines of that. And then this can also represent like possibly getting a new opportunity, but it's like on the hush hush. Okay, like this is like, I'm not telling, my coworkers and my boss and everyone that I applied at X, Y, and Z company or things along the lines of that. This would be like, I'm keeping my quiet quitting a secret, right? Like this is very much that energy when it comes to if you are actually looking for jobs. I will say it's not necessarily like a victory, I found something, but it can represent finding unusual opportunities in different places and taking a risk career-wise, because the moon connects to risks that we take. So you may take some big risks when it comes to job hunting, if that's what you want to do, or even within your career itself. You might find yourself being a lot bolder this month, but that is definitely a possibility. And then I definitely get the moon for sometimes, so I'm going to say this for a minority of you, for sometimes being outspoken. But given that we have the Two of Swords representing you and we have the Sun in the 4th house, I don't think you're going to be too outspoken, most of you. But for some of you, this can represent being a little bit more outspoken in the work environment. Now, when we get to the Hangman and we're talking about this love here and we're seeing what's going on, for those of you who are single, then yes, this kind of represents, hanging in there. It represents just kind of waiting for Princess or Prince Charming to come along. And then for some of you, this can represent taking on a different perspective or even a different approach when it comes to love. The Hangman is a very reflective card, and it's always about trying to look at things from a different angle, seeing what you could have done differently. I will say it's more about self-reflection. It doesn't necessarily mean seeking outward advice from other people. So I do want to keep that in mind. And you can see here, this is the Hangman on the Before Tarot deck. So on this card in particular, he's kind of just now getting up there to hang. He hasn't quite hanged yet, hasn't quite pulled himself up. So it can feel like this month you're deciding to slowly take in the information, giving your past and your history and etc. about your love life, and potentially consider a new perspective, okay? And the Hangman is interesting because traditionally it's kind of associated with, you know, shame or humiliation and things along the lines of that. And when I look at this card of this Hangman willingly putting themselves up on this plaque, this can feel like a month of feeling like you're taking accountability for past decisions when it comes to your love life. That may not be all of you. You know, maybe some of you have never done anything wrong, but for most of us, we have done something wrong within our love lives. And sometimes we just need a moment to sit and reflect. And since I know you're doing a lot of reflecting this month with these two energies here, this is not really surprising that you might even be looking at the areas of love. And it doesn't have to be specifically with your love life where you're looking at these areas where you may have done wrong. You could be looking at your life and connection when it comes to friends and family, because I look at the love spread to represent loved ones in general. It's like, how could I have done things a little bit different? Let me actually sit and think about that and give a moment to just pause and figure that out. Now, if you're in a relationship, that similar reflection can be going on. Similarly, as I mentioned before, maybe a role reversal within your relationship. Maybe you start taking on a role that typically maybe your partner used to take on. In whatever case, circumstances happen, right? Where maybe one partner used to be the breadwinner and now they're out of work and now the other partner is the breadwinner. I'm just giving an example of a circumstance, but it doesn't have to be that specific one. But it does represent a little bit of a role reversal there when it comes to the Hanged Man and your love life. And then for friends and things along the lines of that, it can represent spending a little bit less time with friends and things along the lines of that. Or even just, you know, if you're in a relationship and you guys are a little bit long distance this month, that is a possibility. Or taking a break. Sometimes people go on breaks within relationships and that happens as well. Hangman is definitely a card that can reflect that. But the Hangman 100% represents taking a time to pause and possibly even look at your love life from a different perspective. Or just feeling like something about this needs to change. I think I want to take a moment to just deliberately pause and come back. And then this can generally just represent taking a pause from love. Also, I want to say when it comes to loved ones, because the Hangman represents sacrifice, and you know how I gave the example before about the switching roles and then taking on the role of the breadwinner. Well, that would be a sacrifice, right? The Hangman is all about making sacrifices for the ones that you love, like how parents sacrifice for children. And that could even be something that you're doing this month. Possibly, like, I'll give an example. Maybe it's your day off, you want to book a spa day, enjoy yourself, go to dinner, then boom, you find out your kid is sick and that spa day is canceled and you have to stay at home. That is making a sacrifice for your child. You are sacrificing your time to yourself for your child. So that's something that can be happening with the loved ones this month, sacrificing your time, your energy to care for someone else, or just in some other sense in which you would make a sacrifice. Another thing this can mean, because I do read loved as things that you love to do, is that you may be making sacrifices in things that you love to do. For example, you know, I have a tarot channel, so I have to sacrifice my time and my energy in order to grow that channel and to remain consistent and to eventually, get better and bigger. That is a goal I think most people have when they create content, right? You make sacrifices of your time, your energy, your money, your efforts for something that you love. And that is something that you may find yourself doing this month when it comes to that. It is all about the sacrifices for the things that you love. So I've given quite a few examples when it comes to this. The overall feeling of this month is the Six of Wands. And you can see on here, I think he is just getting onto the horse. Or no, he's just getting his wreath on his head. So he has just been crowned the winner. And so this month is almost like you are slowly rising to a position where you are being celebrated, but maybe not quite yet. You haven't gotten the cheers from the crowd yet. You haven't gotten the applause. You haven't gotten the full praise, even though you are the clear winner in the race. You are the clear person who has done this magnificent job. But we know the praise and the happiness is coming when it comes to the Six of Wands here. So it kind of reminds me of what I said before, how you're getting a few nods off at work, a few shows of compliments and appreciation, but you're not getting the full outblown praise this month. It kind of shows me, and this doesn't have to be just with work. This could just be in your life in general. This is a good feeling. First of all, let me start with that. This represents, people giving you your flowers to some degree. It's not full blown flowers yet. That should be coming. That will be coming. All right. But it's like the start of it. It's like you're starting to see some of the results of the things that you have worked hard for and that you have pushed towards. So this could possibly represent even smaller victories. Like, for example, if you were someone who was looking to get into certain colleges, maybe you get into the point where you're being interviewed, and that's like a small victory because not many people get interviewed for this college, and you're like, oh wow, they're acknowledging me, they kind of want me to come on board, I gotta kill it in this interview. So it's like a smaller victory before you get that full-blown applause. Just giving that example, but it can really be anything. The Six of Wands is a feeling of accomplishment. It's a feeling of getting the job done. It's a feeling of feeling like you are being praised or you are about to receive some sort of acceptance and love from other people. But it does show that this month does have a lot of good things coming for it. And even if you are not being celebrated, you're celebrating yourself for sure, especially with this sun in the 4th house. I should say you have the King of Cups in that finance position. I also read it as confidence, and that shows that you are very, very confident this month and you feel good about yourself overall and you feel like you're heading in the right direction. And I think that some other people are just like, yeah, I really think that you're doing an incredible job and I hope you keep up the good work. Punarvasu is an interesting card to get, and I know it's called Wealthy Again, which is kind of what I see it as. Punarvasu is a very intense nakshatra from what I have seen. There is a sense of generosity to it. So you may even find yourself being generous with others. I guess that's that feeling of sacrifice. It makes sense because the Hangman's connected to Pisces and Jupiter rules Pisces and it also rules Punarvasu. So there's a feeling of sacrificing for those that you love and being giving and charitable. But I've also seen it represent being like a very fierce competitor, especially when it comes to, getting the things that they want out of life. The energy is about not having boundaries and not letting anyone hold you back from being your true self and showing who you are in the sense. And the wealthy again part generally comes from like it's this reversal of fortune type of thing where I've seen with Punarvasu and a lot of Jupiterian energy in general. But it's almost like, how do I explain it? I've seen them go through very trying and hard times to sort of climb their way up to the top. And generally, there may be a point in which someone who is Punarvasu may find themselves at a loss of fortune or find themselves in a position where they keep running into a similar mistake and they kind of have to deal with that mistake over and over and over again until they get it right, kind of like Groundhog's Day in a way. So there's a bit of that energy when it comes to Punarvasu in a way. The power to gain abundance is on this card, and I believe that's true. There is definitely some abundance coming for you this month. We see it here with the Six of Wands, that there's something that you are receiving this month that is this strong head nod that you are in the right direction, that you have hit, some sort of goal that you've been meaning to hit, and it's looking pretty big and bright for you. My camera just doesn't want me to be great, but as I was saying with Punarvasu, what I see here is the expansiveness of Jupiter. And when I think about the expansiveness of Jupiter, it's not just about the material abundance, but about the emotional abundance. And what I mean by that is Punarvasu is also known as kind of like returning to the light, returning to the truest form and version of yourself that is not confined or defined by society. So society would have us to be a little bit more humble, to be more compliant, to be more agreeable. Well, when we look at this Six of Wands here, and we look at the energy of Punarvasu, it's like you're returning to a place where you are no longer this wallflower and you're stepping into your confidence. And you will often see this with Punarvasu movies, where you might have this small, timid wallflower who suddenly gains their confidence again, or suddenly grows into a different person, or strips out of this version of themselves that is, I guess, built by society or the people around them or the perception of people around them, and they unleash and show their true nature, and they are confident within who they are. So it's like this month, you're slowly gaining and coming back and stepping into the light and reclaiming that sense of self and confidence, and there is less doubt. You're moving from this place of confusion into a place of certainty. And almost like you're finally taking your throne, or you're starting to take your throne. With the Six of Wands on the Before Tarot deck, it's like you are just on the precipice of being recognized and slowly being acknowledged for your worth. But you're not standing within that true sense of glory yet. But you're about to step into a place of visibility and leadership. So this is something that I have seen with the energy here. And it's just generally from what I'm seeing about this is a rise in confidence. Knowing your purpose, knowing who you are, knowing direction to go in. It's like, hey, I know what I am and I'm going to go after it. And that's kind of like what's happening to you this month. As I said, you're emerging from this wallflower and stepping into a place where you are embracing your true power and your inner truth and who you truly are. All right. So I just want to say that is kind of like the energy of this month. You're not afraid to ruffle any feathers, or you won't be maybe by the time this month is over, and you're starting to truly emerge. That is what I am seeing for you, pile number 1. So I really do think that this is a great month to recognize your own inner truth, recognize your abilities, recognize that your own worth and your own value, and stepping away from anything that says otherwise. All right. So that is what I see. It's an inner light. It's an inner confidence. Maybe that's why that sun's in the 4th house, because the sun in the 4th house is like, hey, I get my confidence from within. I don't need that validation from other people, but at the same time, it's nice to have it, because we do have that sun in Capricorn, which represents the highest position of the chart. And so, like I said, you're receiving that recognition, but also you're also validating yourself from within. And you are not holding back, or you're starting to unleash, and I love to see it. So that is what I have for you, pile number one. Hopefully this resonates. If not, feel free to choose another pile. Remember, I go live on the weekends. That's Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So come join the live if you want to ask a question. And then periodically, I give private readings, so check that description bar for that. And check out a new reading every Thursday, and I will see you next time. Au revoir. Hey, pal, number two, let's get into your 2025 June reading. So, we have the Lovers for where you are, the Seven of Cups for finances, the Hangman for career. We have the Five of Wands for sort of like your love life in a way, or just things you love, people you love. We'll get into that later. And we have the Ten of Cups, and this is on, both of these are the before tarot deck. And this right here, oh, sorry, that's the Ten of Wands. Why did I think that that was a Five of Wands? Maybe it just kind of represents some of that frustration. Maybe that was a message from Spirit. But this is the Ten of Wands, sorry, Ten of Cups on the before tarot deck. Sorry, guys. And we have some Astro dice that I want to get into. We have the Sun, the fourth house, and Scorpio. And let's not forget our Nakshatra cards. I'm going to shuffle these really quickly. They're quite big, so they take me a minute to shuffle. Just want to remind you of that. Give a good spread about with these cards here. Make sure everything is on the up and up. Just one more shuffle I'm feeling. All right, and I'm going to pull a card. And we have Anurata. All right. So let's get into this. Sun, fourth house, Scorpio. For what we see for the month of June, there is going to be more so emotional transformations within your fourth house. Now, Sun in the fourth house can represent just having maybe some changes within your home environment. We know the Sun connects to a renewal, a fresh new start, a new day. And so that can represent some changes within your home life, maybe some spring cleaning, summer cleaning, whatever the case may be. I know summer starts like June 22nd or June 21st, whatever the case may be, but it can just represent having some changes within the home environment. In other cases, this can represent seeing family or friends more. In particular, it's going to be more so family or childhood friends, you know, friends that you've had for a long time since your childhood. That can be spending more time with them as well, either of the two. And then when we have this sort of energy with the Sun in the fourth house, that can represent also spending some cozy time at home, all right? Because the Sun represents the ego, represents the self, and it's kind of like your self is feeling like comfortable, powerful in your domain in the home environment. And so that type of energy can be coming for the fourth house. Now, I've had plenty of fourth house transits, whatever the case may be, and I've seen these transits for other people. So I do want to mention that, you know, the Sun's not a major transit, but I'll mention a few things that this could possibly represent. Well, this can represent sort of meeting someone new in terms of your romantic life. Generally, the fourth house is going to bring about bigger circumstances with meeting someone new. And what I mean by that, that's like, oh, this is my first boyfriend, my first girlfriend, this is my husband, this is my wife. Like, it's these sort of pivotal circumstances, not like, oh, I'm on boyfriend number 5 and I met them through my fourth house of transit. Like, that's usually not the case with the fourth house energy. Fourth house is more stability and grounding or creating a foundation. And that's why I say it's usually somebody who's going to be like, this is a pivotal type of relationship. And usually, like, when you have your first boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever the case may be, that's something that's a little bit more monumental that you generally remember very well. And then obviously the person you marry is somebody who has a huge effect on your life and transforming it. So those are things can happen. Also, it can represent creating more stability for yourself. I've seen people who have fourth house transits or their fourth house ignited, and they are more independent. They go out on their own and they find their own place. They are no longer, you know, leaning on anyone else, like their parents or even having roommates. This is like, I'm setting out a place for myself. Not to say that you won't have roommates. In fact, you can have roommates, but it's just representing a new living circumstance that might be different than how you previously have lived. And then I've already mentioned kind of like spending more time at home. And obviously the fourth house connects to more emotional matters. And so this can bring about a lot of joy and happiness within the home. And at the same time, it can bring about fights and arguments and things along the lines of that, because the sun is half malefic as well. And also it can represent feeling a little bit overstimulated. All right. So your home environment may feel like, oh my goodness, like it is so noisy here. There's a lot of people in and out. Like my roommates are noisy, etc. Things along the lines of that. My neighbors are a little crazy. That can be sort of fourth house energy as well, especially when we have Scorpio there, which is such transformative energy. And obviously Scorpio rules those ups and downs. So there can be some very much so ups and downs moments within the home. Okay. It may feel like there's not much privacy, only because Scorpio is such a dark house, and when the sun comes in, it ignites it. It brightens the room, okay? So there's no privacy here. And so there can be moments like that when we have this representing the June energy, but I'm not here to say that this is tragic, okay? The same way that it can feel a little bit frustrating is the same way that this can also be a month of things feeling actually really great, because Scorpio also connects to having extreme emotions. And so you may feel extremely comfortable and very happy within the home, and maybe even feel like you are celebrating things with people you care about within the home, or even having some sort of support. Okay. I do want to mention that it may feel like you're finally at peace, or you feel more comfortable at home. Like home may feel like your sanctuary for the month of June. Just want to throw that out there for the Astro Dice. Now on this spread, let's start off with the Gemini card to represent where you are. So it's very interesting here, because generally when I said Gemini card because it connects to Gemini, it's the Lover's card, but it does connect to Gemini, and we'll get into that in a second. The Lover's card generally represents choices. It does represent a lot of things, your own belief system. And sorry if there's any noise in the background. It does represent, deciding who you are, having a strong framework, and kind of going out there and exploring, okay? This is very much a card of trying to understand others, making decisions. It represents, what's the word for it? Expanding your mind, expanding your knowledge. It connects to creating relationships. Obviously, it connects to soulmates and love and attraction, things along the lines of that. So I say all this to say that right now you may even feel like you are at a pivotal point in your life where you need to make some decisions on where you would like to go next, or just maybe some general decisions have been weighing on your mind, some choices that you feel like you need to make. A bit of a fork in the road type of moment with the Lover's card here. It also can represent that you might be more in a mood to sort of be in the mood for romance, for love. Moody's mood for love, okay? It's just feeling a bit like you want to connect with others, you want to form bonds, you want to form relationships. Maybe you are looking to step out and gain a partner, or even just spend more time with your partner if you are already in a relationship. You may feel like, hey, I just kind of want to, be at home with my loved one, that very sun in the fourth house Scorpio energy, and have these intimate, deep and caring moments. A lot of these things like that come up when we have the Lover's card. One thing that I love about this card is I generally get the Lover's card to represent harmony and peace. I don't see it too much when it comes to chaos. So actually right now, I wouldn't be surprised if you were a little bit more mentally at peace. Even if you feel like you have to make some hard choices, there's a sense of like confidence in the fact that you have the knowledge, you have the tools to go in the right direction that is best suited for yourself. And then also when we have the Lovers here, this can also represent to, in a sense, a level of ambition, because as I was saying before, it connects to Gemini. And Gemini connects to the third house. It rules the third house. That's where it natally, naturally is. And this is the house of efforts. This is the house of skills. This is the house in a way of courage. And courage in a way connects to that ambition. So there's a part of you that wants to go out and wants to explore more. Maybe you're even hoping and thinking about a vacation, honestly, with these cards right here. And then also it's just feeling like maybe you have travel on the brain. There's a sense of exploratoriness to you, meaning that you want to gain new experiences, you want to move in different directions, you want things to move about some. You have to know that Gemini is a mutable sign, meaning it doesn't sit still. So part of you might even feel a little bit restless, like you need to switch things up a little bit, which is interesting because we do have this sun in the fourth house in Scorpio, which can be a little bit like, you know, like I said, it can be hot and cold. Like certain moments are going to feel so cozy and comfortable. Then other moments is like, I really got to get out the house, right? So it's a sense of inconsistency when it comes to how you're feeling. And that's just how Gemini energy is. That's how the Lovers energy is as well. You have to think about the Lovers has two people on the card, meaning there's two faces and two energies here. And then we all know that the Lovers card connects to the Garden of Eden, which is all about expanding that knowledge and growing your mind, growing your assets, but like putting yourself out there more. Sometimes this can even just represent, you know, feeling like you want to scroll on social media more, or even if you have if you're a content creator yourself, make more content. This can feel like if you want to start a business, start a business. This can feel like, hey, I just want to hang out with my friends, I want to hang out with my family, I want to hang out with whoever the case may be. But there is a sociability element to these cards, okay? I do want to put that out there. And we have to know that this card is all about following that passion. I already mentioned that courage. So there might be an element to you right now where you're feeling like you want to jump out there and try something new this month. You're like, I need to just try something new, try something different, switch up the pace, switch up the vibe, and go in a different direction because I just need some changeability in my life right now. Things are too stagnant and you're ready for things to move. Now, it's interesting that we got this Seven of Cups when it comes to finances, because the Seven of Cups is, not going to say it's the best financial planning card, but it's not the worst. It's not like we got the Five of Pentacles here. So we know when it comes to the money situation, what this is sort of highlighting here when it comes to all of that is generally the Seven of Cups is going to be focusing on how can I spend my money? It's very much like there's so many different choices and options out there. And there goes that word again, choices, right? We've got two cards representing choices. And I really find that very interesting because to me, it feels like this month is really all about expanding your options or even assessing your options and testing them out, testing out what works for you, what interests you, and allow your mind or your heart or your spirit to lead you into the right direction. You know, for someone like me, that may be like, oh, I want to try to do something different. Maybe I want to go to a cake decorating class. So something simple like that. For somebody else, maybe that's like, oh, for the first time, I would like to try bungee jumping or skydiving. And it doesn't have to be an activity. It can literally be like, oh, for me, I think I would like to jump to a different field, like in terms of career. I want to jump to a different area in my life and that, or I want to move, you know, that could be about that. But where do I want to move to? It's like figuring out those choices, doing that research, okay? But anyway, as I was saying, with the Seven of Cups, it generally represents that you have a lot of options when it comes to spending your money. I usually get the Seven of Cups to be more of a spender than a saver, but there is the possibility that you might be looking at different investments if you are somebody who invests your money. If you have a 401k, a Roth IRA, you know, maybe you decide to expand those investments in a way, and that is quite a possibility with the Seven of Cups. But generally, the Seven of Cups is all about indulgence and temptation. And so I do want to say, for those of you who may have some bad habits, because when I tell you that this pile represents money, I also mean like it represents things you consume. I'm sort of reading it from an astrological perspective as well. Represents things you consume, put into your system, put into your body. And so let's say you have like a bad habit of smoking. This could be like you're tempted to spend your money on, you know, that nicotine craving. Or if you're into vaping, like it might be like, oh, I'm tempted to spend my money in that area. If you're like going out for drinks, you might be doing that a little bit more this month. And that's not a judgment. I'm just saying what the cards are kind of throwing there. Like I said, the Seven of Cups is more about, you know, having those choices, and it tends to love indulgence. It tends to like to seek things that it finds to be pleasurable, fantastical, anything that is going to bring about a sense of fantasy or glamour, or even this card is connected to delusion. So spending money on like alcohol or things like that wouldn't be surprising to me with the Seven of Cups. I will say though, with the Seven of Cups, it doesn't have to be things that are technically bad habits or, you know, those bad temptations. It can also just be the things that are fantastical. You have to remember, on the original Seven of Cups card, you have that jewelry, those pearls. I think there's like a castle there at some point, a head, which could represent maybe spending things on like knowledge, things, making logical choices in your spending or anything like that. Something along the lines of that. Maybe even just like spending your money on something that isn't necessarily going to last you in the long run. That's that Seven of Cups energy. It's like, how can I spend my money on things that are not necessarily highly valuable in the long run, but it's kind of more so like, I just kind of want that. Like, I just think that I like that. I want that. You know, I see a piece of jewelry I like, I want to buy that. I see some expensive perfume, I just want to get that. Like, the Seven of Cups kind of indulges herself. And so you might be doing that this month, not only when it comes to just buying things, but even things that you're consuming. This could even be like, I'm eating out more, or I'm like pulling away from my diet. Like, if you're somebody who's on a diet and you're eating healthy, Seven of Cups, not really the one to be strict about sticking to a diet, right? It can represent having a bountiful of choices and food options that to choose from, and you just find yourself exploring those options. But I will say, cups aren't terrible. It doesn't represent that you are blowing all your money or spending it all away in any sense. It doesn't represent stability either. It's kind of one of those in-between cards that's really just about, I want to enjoy myself this month, and I don't really feel the need to be too financially responsible, okay? You're really using this money to sort of just live your life and feel good. That is the feeling of the Seven of Cups. And honestly, it feels like the month of June, there's going to be a lot of different things to do. And I say that because when you think about the cup spread, it's all about relationships and, you know, outings and having fun. You think of that Two of Cups, that Three of Cups. Excuse me. Even the Six of Cups represents some sort of a bonding. The Nine of Cups is a good time as well. So there's a lot of partying, having fun, indulging yourself when it comes to the cup spread. And there's likely that's what you're going to be doing this month when it comes to your money. I will say this pile also represents self-esteem. And so this can sort of give a very grandiose view of yourself, or even you could be feeling bad about yourself, but it would be in a way that's just not built and faced in reality. Like, if you're starting to feel a little bit insecure and you're like, oh my gosh, I look terrible, blah, 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 blah. That's your imagination. You probably look absolutely stunning, okay? So this can give a very skewed view or perception of yourself for this month, and that can happen sometimes, right? Like, you can see yourself one way, and then, you know, a month later you're like, why was I even thinking about myself in that way? Like, why was I downing myself? Or even the opposite, or like, I was really feeling myself way too much, like I looked absolutely insane. I know that not everyone, but a lot of people have gone back on pictures of themselves and been like, oh no, I had eyebrow blindness, like, or I had blush blindness. Goose, I can't speak. And it just feels like, oh gosh, how did I even think that way? So when it comes to the feeling, how you feel about yourself, like I said, it can give like an overflated view of self, or even just like a underflated. I don't know if underflated is a word, but it can make you feel a little bit like you're downing yourself for no reason, okay? It's just very fantastical, very imaginative, Seven of Cups type of energy going on here. This can also represent just like exploring different types of things that you want to consume in a way, or you just want to try out. Like maybe there's an opportunity to try a new ice cream shop and they have some sort of unique thing going on. Maybe they offer like ube ice cream and you're like, I've never had ube ice cream. Let me try that. So a lot of exploring to go do here when it comes to the Seven of Cups here. And you can even see on the deck, this card in particular, how I was talking about, it doesn't give you the best perception of yourself. And you see how this person is wearing a mask. So it's kind of like that. Like for the month of June, you may not see yourself how other people view you. All right. I do want to say that. But like I said, it gives you tons of options. And from a spiritual perspective, you may just be feeling very spiritually attuned at this time in the month of June. Now, when we get into the Hangman, when it comes to your career, there is a lot of watery energy. The Hangman connects to Pisces, and I just see that with this spread in particular. And Anurata is in the Scorpio sign of Vedic astrology. So that's why I'm saying there's a lot of watery elements with these four cards here. And not only that, but we got the fourth house in Scorpio again. So Scorpio energy is coming up twice. So much to say about that, because Scorpio is very intense. And I feel like there's a lot of emotional transformation going on this month, possibly a transformation of your confidence and yourself. If we start looking at how the sun lies within Scorpio. But let's get into the Hangman first. So the Hangman, when it comes to your career, this is very interesting because at excuse me, my voice. From one perception, what this can do is it can make it feel like you are stuck, like you're not going in the direction that you would prefer to go in when it comes to your career. It can feel like you are wanting to move in a different direction, but the universe, life, whatever circumstances is saying, wait, I need you to sit here for a moment. It is not your time to move to the next stage. In another scenario, this can represent, like if you're going through interviews, having more delays. And I guess that's sort of similar scenarios, kind of like backpacking off what I was talking about with the delays, where you're waiting to hear from feedback and it feels like you're in a limbo period for the month of June. Just a lot of delays with the jobs and getting back to you and things along the lines of that. This can also represent sort of like a role reversal at work, because the Hangman, not only does it represent a change in perspectives, but I've seen it to represent a change in roles. And what I mean by that is, one time I got the Hangman for an interview. And instead of the interviewer interviewing me, I kind of flipped the script and started interviewing them. And so it can be sort of like that at work, all right? So if you feel like you were in a position where you didn't have a lot of power, or maybe you were being supervised or even to some cases micromanaged, now it's kind of like the scripts are flipping, and now you're the one who has a little bit more power and you have a little bit more freedom, and you're the one providing the feedback. You're the one who is giving the instructions. You're the one who might be supervising someone else. You might even take on a more leadership role, or even switch roles. Like I said, this can be a change and switch of roles within the same job, or maybe a different job, but generally it's probably going to be within the same job. With the Hangman, he doesn't move too much, right? If he's moving, it's like a little winging back and forth. So that's why I would think it would be within the same job, but it does represent a change of pace in some regard. So I do want to say that. And then also, because the Hangman is just hanging there, work can feel slow. Work can feel slow for the month of June. It can feel like you don't have a lot of responsibilities. There's a lot more downtime. There's a lot more quiet time. And one thing I forgot to say, because we have the Hangman, and the Hangman generally represents isolation because it connects to the 12th house in Pisces. And then we also have the Sun in the 4th house. Sun in the 4th house can make someone work from home. So if you currently work in an office, there's a possibility that there's more opportunities for hybrid within the month of June. Maybe something changes, maybe the structure changes, and then you're allowed to do more hybrid positions, or maybe move to different job sites, or even just move to a different like office or location in office, or even have like a more private space or private area. But whatever the case may be, there does seem to be a little bit more alone time within the work environment. This is not a case where you're being crowded by a bunch of individuals. This is very quiet. This is very peaceful. This is very much like there's not a lot going on here. Don't get me wrong. There are times when the Hangman can represent chaos in the wild, wild west, but I don't see that being the case for this. This is more so things being a little bit unstructured. I have seen that for the Hangman to represent things being a little bit loose, a little bit unstructured, not having like clearly defined tasks, not having things planned ahead. Maybe there's less due dates. It's more improvised energy going on with the Hangman. There's a lot of that. And also we all know that the Hangman is about letting go of control. Okay, so instead of like working hard to like push for promotions or prove yourself, you're just like, I'm gonna just see where things go, you know, things along the lines of that. And then also this can represent some unexpected feedback or conversations that changes your perspective on your workplace or your work environment, or even a coworker or something along the lines of that, you know. And even there's a lot of time reflecting on your career, thinking things through, figuring things out, understanding what your next steps is, understanding your options. There's a lot of reflection and a lot of choices needing to be made in the month of June. A lot of downtime to decide where it is that you want these next steps to go, short term and long term within your life. All right. There's a lot of that going on for the month of June. A lot of thinking things through. And then the last thing I want to say with the Hangman, because I said it represents that isolation, it represents moving away, it connects to Pisces. Pisces is the sign of vacation. It's the sign of, it's opposite of Virgo. Virgo's the house of work. Pisces the house of I'm not really employed. So maybe for some of you, it could be a job loss, but that's so extreme. But then again, in this day and age, things are extreme. But it will say the 12th house does represent possibly taking a vacation, possibly taking some time off, you know, maybe even a sabbatical, maybe even having to take some medical leave, whatever the case may be. But it can represent having sort of like a chapter close, a project close, or just feeling like you just need some time to yourself to pull away. So there's that going on. But whatever the case may be, the Hangman is not necessarily the grind card. So I don't expect you to be working extremely hard at work for the month of June. I would be very, very surprised if that were the case. Now let's get into this love stuff. Woo! We got the 10 of Wands here. And earlier I misspoke and said the 5 of Wands. And so that might have been like a light message talking about how things seem to be a little bit chaotic. So the 10 of Wands is actually very interesting. 10 of Wands, I got once to sort of represent even like a financial position and things that I was going through during that time period. And it was crazy. It was just, it felt so overwhelming. Felt like I couldn't keep up with my budget, couldn't keep up with my spending. There was some surprise expenditures going on. The debt felt very heavy. It felt like such a burden trying to make more money, trying to ensure that I'm planning for my financial future, trying to make sure that I'm not eating out too much, but at the same time trying to balance and make sure I have some fun and live my life. And it just felt overwhelming. And so maybe your love life for the month of June just feels a bit like maybe you feel a bit exhausted, okay? Maybe it feels a bit like, if you're singles particularly, that you've felt like you've done it all and you're just burnt out and you feel like you're not getting the results that you like, and you would love support. You would love someone to come on and recommend somebody to you, or set you up on a blind date, or have somebody else come in and help and take the reins, but that doesn't seem to be happening. And let me look at this. Sorry, astronauts, the card cut off and got a little overheated. I have been talking a while and we do need to wrap this up. But as I was saying, the Ten of Wands on this card shows the negotiations before the hard work. And so when I look at that from a symbolic perspective, to me, it's like you're signing up, and I'm specifically talking about singles, but this could be for a relationship as well, but you're signing up to do the work, okay? This could be about you deciding to enter the relationship or enter a new stage into the relationship where you're like, I'm going to put in the work to make this relationship work, or to even deal with someone else's baggage. That happens, right? Like, it depends on your perspective and if you feel like that's something you want to take on. And if you're single, this can feel like, okay, I have made like this promise to myself that I will go and seek and find love, even though I know it's extremely difficult and taxing, but it means something to you and your heart's in it. The thing about the Ten of Wands is this is not an imposed burden by someone else. The Ten of Wands takes on this work and this task because they want to, which they show this on the Before Tarot deck. This person signed up for this. This person signed up for this effort, for this responsibility, for this task. And it can feel like that for your love life, where you're like, this month I have actually signed myself up to do some more work, or to go the extra mile, and to ensure that my love life makes some progress. And the thing I love about the Ten of Wands is that even though it is a very tiresome card, every time that I've gotten the Ten of Wands, even with that example I gave you before with like the finances, felt like I was losing control of it. At the end of the month, I had actually spent way less money than I had ever done the previous months. I had actually spent half as much money. I think I had set a budget for myself, and I think I was only over my budget for like $5 or $6 or something like that. It wasn't that bad. So it's like, even though things feel overwhelming, stressed out, and terrible, at the end of it, there does seem to be like this feeling of things having worked out, okay? That is what I want to say about the Ten of Wands, and what I have seen, the message, how the messages have come in for me as a reader, okay? Maybe it means something else for somebody else, but that's how it presents itself to me. That's how the energy presents itself to me. So this effort you put into your love life, or this effort that you're signing up to put in to actually move your love life forward in a direction that you want, or to build something lasting, to draw yourself into a situation or a dynamic where it feels like you're carrying on the load, you feel like you're building towards love, and you just might be. This might just be part of the journey that you have to go through. You may not understand it all right now, but at some point, I feel like in the future, you'll look back and you'll be like, I'm so glad I did that. I'm so glad I tried that. I'm so glad that I stepped into this new stage. I'm so sad. I'm so excited that I decided to take on the task that was love, which is a very daunting task, okay? And this can also represent an opportunity to create something lasting and impactful within your love life, okay? You know, Ten of Wands can represent feeling overwhelmed planning a wedding. Some of you may be getting engaged, may getting married, and it just feels like, wow, this is a lot to deal with. Some of you guys may be going through rough patches in your relationship, and this feels like a huge hurdle and a huge hump to overcome. But you're willing to sign up and put in the work to do so, because that relationship has meaning for you. You know, everyone knows that relationships relationships aren't always cozy and cute and fun. Sometimes you are signing yourself up for a lot of work and responsibilities. It's kind of like, you know, becoming a mom or a dad. You know, it's an incredible amount of work, but for a lot of people, it's extremely rewarding, okay? I've even gotten the 10 of Wands for, you know, schooling and certain semesters, and the semesters did feel very 10 of Wands, frustrating, tiring. I was very angry at some point. I was like, feeling like I was losing my mind, but at the end, hey, who got straight A's? I did, right? So very rewarding at the end, and I felt that I was able to take in a lot of information, and even if I didn't take it in then, I still have the opportunity to go back and refresh myself, right? So that's what I mean by this 10 of Wands energy, okay? Nothing comes without that energy, without that time, without that effort. It is part of building towards something lasting. And that's what I want to say as love, you know. Nothing about this card is spontaneous. Nothing about this card is free-spirited. This is very heavy energy. So for me, this feels like, for whether you're single in a relationship, this is making a commitment. And that is what these cards are about, with the 10 of Wands. Making a commitment. Forming a connection. Pursuing love, knowing that it's not going to be easy. Trying to build a family or maintain relationships with loved ones, even though it takes time and effort. And I want to get into that in a minute, because generally I get the love card not only to represent romantic love, but the people who are your loved ones. And it can feel like it's hard to maybe keep up with everyone. Maybe your friends are more spread out. Maybe it just feels like you guys don't have that much time for each other. But the 10 of Wands here is like saying, I'm making a commitment to make time for my friends, to make time for my family. And even when we get the 10 of Wands, it can even represent having your family or friends lean on you for certain things or ask you for certain favors. And it feels like, oh wow, this is a lot, but I want to be there for my friend. I want to be there for my family. And then similar to the situations I said before, where you have to make effort to reach out, make those connections, continue to pursue those relationships. And maybe just feeling like, yeah, I have a lot going on in my life right now, but I still feel like my friends mean something important to me, and I are my family, and I want to make that lasting commitment. I want to be there for them. All right. This is setting that intention. This is 100%. I'm signing up for something wild. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it. But the thing, like I said about the 10 of Wands, is it's not lasting. 10s always represent endings and new beginnings. All right. We do want to say that. And we do have that sun here representing the new beginning. And then also with the 10 of Wands, it can represent feeling busy. When I get the love card, I also get it to represent things that you're doing, things that you love doing. You know, for example, you know, 1 month I have gotten like the 4 of Wands to represent, like, you know, love, relationships. This is how I read for myself as well, guys. Just letting you know how this spread is. And it kind of represented me celebrating myself. And not only that, but my friends celebrating me as well. Because that particular month was like a birthday month, right? So I was getting celebrated by myself. I was treating myself well and doing things that I liked for me, and then I was doing things that my friends were doing things for me as well, and family as well. So there's that energy to it. And then I just want to say, so for the activities and things that you may be doing, since the 10 of Wands feels a little bit like overwhelmed, and we also get the 7 of Cups to represent different options, you may feel like there's a lot of different options to do things in June. It feels like a busy month. It feels like a crowded month where you're spread all over the place with different opportunities that you want to dip your toes into, and you're just like running yourself ragged. It just reminds me of this TikTok I saw, which was so funny. She's just like, I'm realizing as an adult, if I want to do things, I have to do them tired. And that's maybe going to be you for the month of June. You may have a lot of exciting things that you are looking forward to, that you want to participate in, but you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I'm so tired, and but I'm overwhelmed. I'm so tired. I'm overstimulated, but I really want to do these things, so I'm going to make myself do these things, and that's what this can mean. Let's move forward, because I think we're getting a little bit long, and I don't need these piles to be each an hour long. That's insane. I don't need to do like a 5-hour reading. 10 of Cups when it comes to an overall vibe of the month. Now, this is the before tarot spread, and we know that on this card, it shows like the family running in the rain. They're raining. The adults are a little sad, but the kids are fun. They're having fun. They're enjoying the rain. I would say that, you know, when it comes to the overall feeling of this deck, it's what it reminds of the card. What it reminds me of is this feeling of like knowing that something is not exactly an ideal situation right now, but you know that that rainbow is on the other side, and all of these things are pretty much good for you in the long run, right? The 10 of Cups is all about that big, happy, beautiful moment. It's an exciting, lovely card. So even though we know it's raining, it's not the end of the world. Nobody's melting in the rain. It's not terrible. And at the end of the day, we know that we're going to get that rainbow. We know we're going to get something good out of it. And that's the feeling of this month. There's days and times where things feel a little bit gloomy, but you know that throughout the month, you're doing things that are for your better good, that are going to generally pretty much lead to something positive at the end. You're going to get that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's pretty much guaranteed. You know it. You're following all the steps to do so. And at the end of the day, it is the 10 of Cups. So even though you're running through the rain, you're getting wet, you're in the mud, you recognize that rain is just a part of life, and it's really not that bad. You know that this is just a moment in time before something amazing and beautiful happens. And that's the general feel of this month. Like, oh, I've just got to get through this rainy moments before I get my beautiful day. And then sometimes, like I said, with these children, they're enjoying the rain. They think it's fun. They have a positive attitude. So to some degree, it does depend on your perspective, more that hangman energy there, right? Where you're just kind of like, yeah, it's raining, but rain's fun. Jumping in puddles is fun. You know, getting drenched in the rain and laughing your butt off with the people you love and care about is fun. It creates bonding moments. So this month has a lot of great bonding moments. May they be bonding moments through things that aren't as pleasant? Yeah, maybe. It's kind of like that turbulence on a flight, but then you finally get at your destination. But the 10 of Cups here is that little bit of turbulence here on the before tarot deck, and then you finally like land in some beautiful island in Italy or something, off the coast of Italy. Right? And so something like along the lines of that, or packing for vacation, was so burdensome, but then you end up in this beautiful, wonderful resort with beautiful, nice massages and a spa with a heated room. What do you call those heated rooms that you get into, those like saunas, with a sauna and etc. and things along the lines of that. So we know good days are coming. We know that it's only up from here. It's positivity, it's greatness. And yes, like I said, there's some parts of the month that are like, but you're like, whatever, it's going to get me something great. This stress is going to lead me to something positive. It's kind of like getting like a college degree or something like that. I'm just giving an example because, you know, I'm studying. And you're like, oh man, this is so much work, but it's worth it because it can potentially give you some worthwhile opportunities in the and same with, like, you know, I always give an example of a diet where it's like, oh, this is such a struggle and such a pain to stick to this diet. But then it gives you a positive mental state and a better body that you like and enjoy, and you're healthier and you're happier and things along the lines of that. That is the feel of this month, okay? And we also have this card, Anurata. So to talk quickly about Anurata here, Anurata is definitely a card that can represent having some very monumental moments that maybe the average person doesn't get to experience. And maybe that is part of this month in a way where you are building connections with those people who have gone through these unique experiences together, and it feels like you're bonding over that. Feels like you're bonding over those feelings in particular, and you see how the amount of people in which you're bonding with is very limited. And then we also have that sun in the 4th house in Scorpio. Once again, that is also a small circle. So something about this month feels like you're having some unique experiences with a small group of people, and it's sort of like bringing you closer. That's the vibe of it. And then also with Anurata, as I mentioned, it can represent having some jealousy thrown your way to some degree. I will say that when it comes to that, I would like to say that Anurata is a placement that does represent hard work. It represents, transforming your life in a new direction, where I've seen some Anurata people go from, being in this small, maybe religious environment to moving out and becoming, more worldly and taking on a completely different lifestyle than the one that they've grown up in. And so there could be this switch in lifestyle or mentality that is going on. I do want to say Anurata is, I believe, the star of friendship. This says star of success. That's another thing that it is connected to. And that's another thing that I meant by having some very unique experiences that other people don't particularly get to have, and that is also in the form of success. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were some successes that you have this month that you may want to, not share as much with a lot of people, because it could possibly bring about that green eye of envy. And then also, as I mentioned before, it does represent sort of like up leveling and climbing to a new level and being open to, what's the word? I guess expand your world. Expand your world in a sense that you are willing to take big risks, because like I said before, Anurata is in Vedic Scorpio, and we have the Scorpio vibe twice, and the Scorpio is the sign of taking those risks. A lot of water signs connect to taking big risks in a way, and I really do see that just might be happening this month, and I feel like those risks are going to pay off. Anurata can also be a card that really does connect you with people who may have a lot of power and influence in a way. So I don't know if you're networking or what could be the possibility happening here, but I do want to say, because it is known as like that star of friendship and making connections with other people, Tara Falguni is like known for making friends as well. That's another placement. But this can bring about meeting some people that you feel could be beneficial towards you in the long run, or even they could be providing advice to you as you move forward. It could also even mean having, as I mentioned before with the social media, having a good strong support system, like a good following fan base if you have social media in that way, or just having very supportive friends and family. You can even see it on the card. It says devotion, which I have seen with Anurata. 100% cooperation. There is a sense of wanting to work together in a way, and we do have that Gemini card here, so you might even be more cooperative or meeting people who are willing to negotiate if they weren't previously wanting to negotiate certain things before, whether that is contracts, whether that is certain things at work or at home or in your relationship. It's all trying to, and even on this card, like I said, they're making a negotiation here. So something about contracts, negotiation, coming to an agreement and understanding is going to be a pivotal part of the month. And Anurata is also one of those nakshatras it's ruled by, Saturn. And Saturn is like the ultimate level up planet. So there's a sense of leveling up this month when it comes to who you are as a person. I will say I think Anurata can be very self-aware over time. So by the end of this month, I would imagine you'd have a different mentality than from the beginning of this month. And that makes sense with the Hangman and what I said here about the emotional growth and the emotional transformation that could be going on for you this month here. And what else could I say about Anurata? I know that they can be pretty hardcore, pretty tough. You know what I mean? Like, like they don't take any ish from anybody, or they can be stubborn. They may not want to listen. They will stand up for themselves. They're the type to call out BS. This is the type, Anurata is the type of placement that if you get the food order wrong, they'll send it back. You know what I mean? Like, it's that type of energy with Anurata. They can be pretty much like, hey, get this right. You know, it's a Saturnian placement, guys. So I do want to put that out there with Anurata. They, like I mentioned before, they can take some big risks. I've seen some Anurata people just kind of like get in their car and travel around the country. I have seen Anurata people who are the type to have like a crush on someone for like years. It really is that like devotion type of planet. It's like, why do you even like that person? Like, but they will have that sense of devotion. And so if you are devoting your time to like a craft or something, it is bound to turn around, or a job. There's bound to be some movement at some point, maybe not this month for the job, but maybe in some other area that can represent that. Anurata people can be pretty bold. They're not afraid to think outside the lines. And so for this month, it feels to me like your thought pattern may be a little bit more innovative. To some degrees, you may not even be afraid to break some rules or even social taboos or stand out in some way. Okay, I do want to say that. I remember there was a story about, I think it was a woman in Korea got pregnant, and I think she's a Saturnian placement, maybe Anurata. And it was so against the social norms because it was outside of wedlock and they weren't planning on getting married. So the story kind of went a little bit viral. But that is what placements like Anurata can do. It can push you to think a little bit differently from society and make you a little bit more controversial in that way. So I do want to put that energy out there where you might be pushing people's buttons this month. Or maybe even the opposite, maybe vice versa. Maybe other people are pushing your buttons, but whatever the case may be, this is very much like I think for myself, I do for myself. And in terms of things happening, this is just like making sure that the things that you want come into fruition. That is why it is the star of success. So that is what I have for you, pile number 2. That gave you a whole full reading. Like, I did not mean for that. It was supposed to be 30 minutes. So I've got to end this, and I hope to see you next time. Don't forget, if you want a reading from me, check the description bar. I offer readings periodically, but you can also join the live if you just want to ask me a question. Join the live sessions. Lots of fun. I really do appreciate all of the follows, the likes, the comments, the support. It means a lot for you guys, for me. It means a lot to me that you guys choose to support me. So thank you so much, astronauts, and I will see you next time. Au revoir. Hey, pal, number 3, let's get started on your June 2025. So this is where you are. This is finances. This is career. This is love. And this is the general vibes, which I should turn this around a little bit. Okay. And we have our Astro dice and Nutsucher cards. But let's start with the dice. See what we get. We have Libra, Venus, 3rd house. So Venus in the 3rd house in Libra. All right, and let's throw some Astro dice in here. Okay, we got Magha. Wow. Let's get into this. So, Right off the bat, let's start with our Astro Dice with Venus in the 3rd house and Libra. To me, when I see this combination of cards, it can represent having some surprises when it comes to love or relationships, things that might just catch you off guard. What it may connect to is going to be different for everyone, but just know, because the 3rd house is the 8 from the 8th house, so it's kind of like a higher version of the 8th house. It represents circumstances that can be a little bit unpredictable, maybe even up and down in that area. You know, there's plenty of things this can mean, like a confession, maybe some challenges within your relationship, maybe even you meet someone new. It's going to be different for everyone. And if love is not a huge factor in your life, maybe you're just, you know, single, bingo, you are just living your life as is, then this can represent having some creativity within this part-time in your life, maybe like a burst of new ideas that you would like to implement. And honestly, this is very much like taking the time to figure out like the direction you might want to go in creatively. For those of you who have like a creative outlet, definitely a great time to experiment in those manners. This can also represent wanting to work on smoothing out communications and addressing any sort of conflicts that you might have, possibly in a friendship, work environment, with friends, whatever the case may be, neighbors. Venus likes to smooth things over when it's in the 3rd house. You know, I have definitely remembered 3rd house transits, and around those times, one time in particular, it was about sort of addressing some communication issues at work. It was like bringing them to the forefront finally on my part, saying, hey, I think that this is a problem. So it was like, time to address some things that we need to work on. The good thing about this is Venus is in its own sign in Libra, and so things may go a lot smoother than if it were in a different sign where it felt uncomfortable or a little bit debilitated. So this is positive in terms of smoothing over any sort of issues or having more, what's the word for it? Pleasant conversations that generally would be seen as uncomfortable or awkward. Well, they might go a lot smoother than they normally would had Venus been in a different sign. 3rd house also connects to things such as courage, skills, bravery. Venus in the 3rd house can 100% represent trying something new. And it really does depend on where Venus is in your chart. But generally, Venus in the 3rd house is going to bring about like an up-leveling in terms of education, finding out information. It's going to bring about circumstances in which you are honestly expanding your mind in a way that is maybe sort of a bit of a challenge, because the 3rd house definitely represents challenges. I'm pretty certain of that. Okay. This can also be about like you are willing to go out there and learn more about finances, art related matters. For example, like maybe you decide to go to a financial conference, maybe you decide to go to a technology conference. Okay. Maybe you learned some things out. Maybe it's not surprises in your romantic relationships, but it could be even surprises within work relationships, friendships. You find out some information about a certain individual. There's definitely been times when I've had Venus go through my 3rd house and I found out information about certain coworkers that helped me sort of understand more about who they are as a person. Okay, so that is something to think about when you have this Venus in the 3rd house circumstances. Okay, and also this is a placement in which it could bring about potential efforts towards gaining more money. So if you're someone who's like looking for new jobs, this is good for that. You may find plenty of places to apply to. Now, whether or not you hear back from them, I mean, it's positive because Venus is in Libra, but obviously this kind of just represents being able to branch out and seeing more roles that are ideally great for you, or some sort of opportunity to up level in your career, just because Venus represents finances. I know personally, when I had Venus in a transit, a third house, there was an opportunity to up level in my career based on my skill set. Okay, it was like I had to apply for something and I actually got approved for that, and it was a positive thing for my career. So these are the things that can happen with this Venus in third house representation going on here. And I'm just using myself as examples because, well, one, I don't want to expose a bunch of information from people who may not be as comfortable, but also because I obviously have a great recall of my own life. And I just want to give examples off the bat without, doing a bunch of research. Okay, so that's my intention here. Okay, so keep that in mind for this month when I talk about this Venus in the third house type of energy. And this can also represent having more conversations about love, more conversations about financial planning, more conversations when it comes to expressing yourself creatively. There we go. Don't know what I was saying. More conversations creatively. And like I said, some of the conversations can be tough, but with Venus in the third house, there is some sort of positive indications that things might move in a different direction. But yeah, that is what I want to say when it comes to that energy for this month. Now, we also want to talk about this Knight of Pentacles here. This Knight of Pentacles representing you and where you currently are. So this is you working hard away. Usually the Knight of Pentacles is that workaholic, obsessive card that wants to look at every single detail. And honestly, to some degree, it may not even be completely necessary. The Knight of Pentacles may go above and beyond. Knight of Pentacles is one of those things that struggles with balance. Most of the Knights struggle with balance because they're learning, right? The Knight of Pentacles shows that you are in a place where you're learning and growing, especially when it comes to career, finances. You may even find yourself being focused in those areas. Pentacles also can represent family as well. So if you're putting in efforts with family or spending more time with family, that can be representative of the Knight of Pentacles as well. But I generally get it more for work circumstances or even growing some sort of hobby, business, etc. that is possible for the Knight of Pentacles. So it shows me that you were very focused on your accomplishments. You're focused more so on the material world, material gains, and you're doing what you can to push yourself to that next level and to accomplish your goals, whatever they may be, possibly even looking at new directions to gain stability, possibly even considering maybe even going independent, freelancing, signing up for a contract and something along the lines of that. And then it also can represent where you may feel like you are spending most of your time at work, or work takes a dominant portion of your energy here, or even circumstances that are duties, okay? Duties that you feel like you are obligated to take care of. I will say the Knight of Pentacles may struggle to find time to take care of themselves. So maybe right now you don't feel like you have enough me time. You don't feel as if you are being provided as many opportunities to focus on that self-care like the Knight of Pentacles would love to do, but they feel like, wow, there's a lot to accomplish, there's a lot to do, and that I'm so far away from accomplishing my goals. This can also represent wanting to look ahead at possibilities of how you can expand so that you can gain certain luxury. So maybe you have a, what do you call it, a dream board, vision board. Maybe you have a vision board of things that you would like, and you're trying to figure out, how can I accomplish these things? So in your mind, you have the luxuries that you would love to gather and to gain, and now you're trying to figure out, well, how can I actually gain these certain items, luxuries, etc. That's very Knight of Pentacles here, but whatever the case may be, it shows that you are working very hard. Without a doubt, you're very strong-willed, you're very dedicated, you're showing up, you're making sure that you are focused on accomplishing whatever tasks are being given to you. Okay, there is a strong sense of responsibility, a strong sense of being practical, and wanting to finish the things that you started. You want that safetyness, you want that, what's that, mundaneness, predictability within your life. The Knight of Pentacles is making sure that you are having a steady foundation, and there aren't like new things popping up every day. Pentacles definitely represent that stability. And then on the other hand, this can represent things feeling a little bit slow and possibly mundane. Maybe you feel a little bit bored. Maybe you feel like things are too routine. Whatever the case may be, that's the Knight of Pentacles, all right? I just want to mention that as we talk about this card and where you might currently be. It does show that you are in a calm place and that you're someone who is very focused. Now, when it comes to the financial areas in life, the Knight of Pentacles the High Priestess shows that you are somebody who is trying to sort of figure out your finances in an intuitive manner. You know, this is not very, I'll be honest, it's not very in line with the Knight of Pentacles, which is very interesting because the High Priestess follows her gut feeling. She follows her intuition. And to some degree, I would say with the High Priestess, it does represent some sort of support. Whether you feel like you have support from friends, family, loans, credit cards, because technically those things are support, because it's like, that's not your money. You're borrowing that money. The High Priestess, I get to represent that she's being taken care of, because that is the traditional role of High Priestess. The High Priestess is not paying bills all herself. She's in a place where people respect her and they make sure that she is living a peaceful life, that she can do her duties to connect with the spiritual realm. So I do want to mention that when I get the High Priestess here. And not only that, but it shows, as I was mentioning before, that you're taking an intuitive take when it comes to your finances. You're like, does this feel like I'm spending enough money? Does this feel like I'm spending too much money? Am I being too restrictive? It's not really following a certain financial plan, more so looking at maybe how you've been spending lately and then deciding based on, you know, your intuitive knowledge or, you know, how much money you spent last week. You're like, well, maybe I'll pull back this week. Maybe I won't spend as much. Or maybe it's like the opposite, where you're like, oh, I've kind of like been holding back lately. I haven't gone out too much. I haven't spent too much. I've only kind of bought groceries and gas and paid a few bills. I think it's time to spoil myself, right? There's that type of energy with the High Priestess, okay? This can also represent, you know, looking at your intuition. If you're somebody who invests, to make investments instead of like looking at all the data of different companies. You might say, I'm going to follow my gut feeling. My gut feeling tells me to pick this stock investment and things along the lines of that. Or my gut feeling tells me that I should do this for my business. Or if you are a content creator, this is like, my gut feeling is telling me I should come out with this type of content, and that will be good for me and my audience, and they'll like this and it will be great. High Priestess can also represent passive income because, like I said, she's not taking care of herself. She's being fully supported. And so maybe this can represent royalties, depending on, like, maybe you're an artist and you get royalties. That happens. This can represent things like affiliate marketing if you're into that side of the world. I'm just naming different scenarios because we all have different sort of financial situations going on. And so this can represent that as well. And then for those of you who might be interested in doing a spiritual craft yourself, then this can say that you are making money from your spiritual talents, okay? I gotta stop saying so much. I think it's a habit. But anyway. And then also this can represent not knowing the entirety of your financial situation, and then maybe even researching that more, because the High Priestess does represent and connect to research. And so you might even want to understand more about the financial situation. You may feel as though you want to expand your mind in those areas when it comes to credit cards, when it comes to setting up life insurance, when it comes to, there's so many different things. What do you call that when you're writing a will and you have to talk to someone about how your money is being dispersed, things along the lines of that? There's a lot of things in the area of finances to know about. And this is one of the possibilities when it comes to the High Priestess. It's like, I want to gain insight on the areas I am unfamiliar with when it comes to finances. I want to have a better understanding of my own finances, but it's going to be different for everyone. So I do want to say that. One good thing about the High Priestess is that it can represent, when it comes to self-esteem, because I read the money card as self-esteem as well, it can come to feeling really great about yourself, because the High Priestess is definitely a confident person. And if you find that maybe people are curious about your finances, the High Priestess does represent mystery. And so people are not even sure about your financial information. They are a little bit maybe curious. So this can represent having like a cloak over your finances. People don't know what your financial situation is. And then not only that, but this is representing of a quiet confidence, as I was trying to go into earlier. And then, as I said before, this can represent being supported by those around you in terms of finances. This can represent having those who are willing to, I guess, help you out. 100%, that is what the High Priestess says. I don't know another way to phrase that. But whatever the case may be, because you have this Knight of Pentacles energy, to me, what these two cards have in common is patience. And to me, it looks like that you are showing some patience in your financial situation. Maybe it's not exactly where you would like it to be, but you are growing in that area, and you're trying to figure out what is the best way to approach finances for you. And that is what it shows for the month of June. And as I mentioned, because of the unexpected things that may be happening with the third house, with Venus being in the third house, this can also connect to unexpected financial situations. Because like I said, 8th from the 8th can represent surprises. Not only that, but we have the High Priestess with mystery when it comes to finances. So there may be some unexpected expenses. When it comes to your career, what we see here is that you are looking at different options. The Seven of Cups is somebody who is exploring different options when it comes to their career. They're not going to stick to the same job. And if you aren't looking at different options, trying to go in different areas, maybe even changing your career for some, then this can represent a lot of daydreaming at work, okay? Lots and lots of different distractions here when it comes to your job. The Seven of Cups shows that maybe your job's a little slow right now. Maybe it's a bit boring. Maybe it's not that exciting. And so you find yourself kind of like scrolling through YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, or you're looking and doing other things that do pique your interest. But the Seven of Cups is very much that energy when it comes to work. And then also, this can connect to goals in general. And so if it's not work that you find yourself daydreaming at, and you're not really looking for a different job, then this might represent your own personal goals and deciding what you want to accomplish next. For example, you might be thinking, oh, you know what? I've always wanted to go to Bora Bora, and I think maybe I want to make that a goal. That might be one of my options. But then at the same time, maybe I just want to save up for a new mattress, or maybe I would like to save up for a expensive spa day at a resort somewhere. It's kind of looking at your options on what direction you would like to move in next. And I'm obviously naming some like financial saving goals, but it doesn't have to be in that realm of area. We all have different goals that we would like to accomplish within this life. And maybe you find yourself reevaluating way different types of goals that I could possibly name. There's so many out there. There's people who are like, I want to buy a house, or I want to be a superstar, or whatever the case may be. There's lots and lots of goals out there. And so this can represent a month of trying to figure out which direction you would like to dedicate your time and energy into next. All right. And so there's a lot of trying to focus that energy. And then obviously for a small portion of you, if you work in the type of environment that is very much like party-ish, which can happen if you're like in sales. So like this is like taking clients out for dinners. This is like we have a work culture where people sort of like drink. Like that would be saying that there's more of that to come this month, because this is very Seven of Cups. This represents some outings, potentially some parties, some possible like celebrations going on, whatever the case may be. But it represents having some relaxation, downtime, less professional atmosphere when it comes to the work environment. The Six of Cups here, when it comes to love, this is great. I'm going to start off with the traditional romantic love, then I'm going to move into the other areas that I like to talk about. This can represent thinking about the past and your relationships, and for some of you, maybe even reconnecting with someone from the past. I know we all say that, but we have to mention it when it's the Six of Cups here, because it's one of the most obvious interpretations, where you are thinking about hitting up an ex or a fling who you used to mess with, or even just find yourself reflecting a lot about those circumstances. But it is a feeling of nostalgia and the past, and looking at situations that used to be, but are not currently, or maybe you want to rekindle it. And for those of you who are in a relationship, then this can represent thinking about like what you guys used to do together when you first date, and maybe you're trying to find your way back to that situation and saying, hey, like, remember when we used to go to these long walks on the park, or we used to go hiking, or we used to like go to the movies every Friday? Maybe we should go back to doing that. I kind of liked doing that because we've settled into a different routine, but I kind of want to like do more of that past stuff that we did together. And then for those of you who are in maybe a more serious committed relationship, this can represent having conversations about children, because the Six of Cups does connect to children and innocence and things along the lines of that. And if you are single, then this can represent possibly even having a crush, only because the Six of Cups connects to innocence and puppy love and things along the lines of that. And so it may feel like you have some crush here. I already mentioned the things of like looking back in the past and wanting to reconnect with maybe a past situation or relationship or crush or something along the lines of that within the areas of romance. And for those of you who are just like, I am not interested in love at all, I'm just single, I want to do my own thing, Well, then we get into the other interpretations when it comes to love, and it's more focused on self-love. And so this can represent you wanting to reconnect to hobbies that you might have previously let go, or things that you've previously done. Maybe you find yourself listening to old music, watching old movies. There's a strong feeling of nostalgia there, and saying, oh man, you know, I used to go to the arcade a lot. I'm going to just go to an arcade and have some fun and do that. And, you know, I used to bake pretzels with my mom when I was like 5. And you know what? I think I want to go ahead and bake some pretzels just to walk down that memory lane and enjoy that part of my life. So it's more about a self-love, but a self-love to things that you used to do that give you a sense of nostalgia and the feeling of the past. And it feels warm and it feels comforting. And then I always get the Six of Cups to represent being supportive of each other, or being supported by family or friends and good company. And so for this month, it can feel that you are being emotionally, sometimes financially supportive. I get the Six of Cups, right? I don't know why, but it does show up for that show up like that for me as a reader, where you feel like you are being supported by family, by friends, to do the things that you would like to do, or maybe even spending time with friends from your past, or even doing things together with friends that you guys used to do, and you're like, oh, we're doing this. Doesn't have to be friends, could be family as well. But the Six of Cups definitely represents going back to that past, walking down memory lane. And honestly, if you're not doing any of that, like I said, it's just a general feeling of just feeling loved and supported by those that you love and care about. I kind of read love as to be self-love, family love, friendship love, things along the lines of that. It connects to all of them when I'm doing a reading. Just like when I do like finances and self-esteem, those two things often go together. Family as well, but a little different. Sometimes it connects to it. Sometimes it's like, well, we have a message about this. But Six of Cups here definitely shows that you are enjoying spending time with people who are close to you, okay? People who have your heart, people who are generally of a positive intention. And I love that, because we also have this card Maga here, and Maga here, like a lot of the K2 nakshatras, connect heavily to the past and walking down memory lane. And Magha is connected to the ancestors as well. So the fact that we have this feeling of nostalgia and connecting to ancestors. Sorry for the camera cut off, astronaut. My camera overheated. But let's get back into what I was saying about Magha, okay? The magnificent one. So this month when I see we have Magha here, you can even see on the card how it represents ambition. And I definitely believe that is a great word to summarize the energy of Magha. So I see this King of Wands reversed, and I will say that given that we have the energies of Magha, it could feel like you might be running a little bit on E this month. And I say that only because Magha is one of those placements that has so much energy. I'm talking about, I've seen Magha people like run through the night, or never take naps, or work 80 hours a week, like just always exerting a lot of energy towards getting what they believe is important done, or even just focusing on health or rejuvenation, whatever the case may be, whatever's important to them. Their energy goes into that, and it's almost like they have superpowers because of the energy is so forceful and magnetic and bountiful. So I feel like this month you will be extending a great deal of energy towards your goals, your responsibilities, whatever it is that you wish to accomplish or get done. And that is something that's important to say. I will also mention that there may be some bumps in the road, some challenges, but that's not unusual given the life that we all live. It all comes with challenges. And you may find yourself having to overcome problems in a short amount of time. And I feel like this month you're going to be able to put your energy into doing the impossible to get things done, okay? Like some sort of last minute of emergency where you have to figure out a solution, and then you figure out that solution. It's very think on your feet type of times with this energy I see in front of me on the cards, but is actually wonderful and beautiful. Maga also is connected to the past, as I think I mentioned, maybe I didn't, but Maga is a K2 ruled nakshatra. All K2 ruled energy connects to the past, so I wouldn't be surprised if you felt the need to either have conversations about history, or even just explore your roots more, or even just find yourself doing things that are typically more traditional. Like, I follow a Maga person and they will wrap their gifts in sort of like an old paper style with a what do you call it, like that rope type ribbon that you might package things in, instead of like a more modern gift style, gift wrapped. Just a lot of more vintage flavor to things. They might go to vintage stores. They will collect older items. That's something that's very Maga, very traditional, even doing things in a traditional way, like washing dishes by hand. So maybe this month you find yourself pulled to more traditional ways of living, whether that be, you know, I'm going to call a taxi instead of an Uber, or I am going to, you know, call people instead of text them. It's just, let's pull back towards things which may be typically seen as more traditional. But the main energy I've seen with Maga, if we're talking more modern day, is the hustle. There is a sense of hustle and bustle this month. Things need to get done, and they need to get done now, or it just feels like things may end up being disastrous. Just a lot of like emergency situations. Another beautiful thing about Maga is, even though I've seen a lot of K2 placements have some struggles with love in general, but when it comes to like creating solid friendships, when they create those, there is a deep intimacy that you don't really get with a lot of other placements. It's like they show their true selves and they are accepted by their true selves. I mean, the rawest version of themselves. And so the relationships, friendships, bonds are extremely intimate. And so you may even find yourself relying more so on friends and having those powerful connections and feeling like, yes, I have someone who accepts me for me. Now, if you're someone who's just more of a bit of a loner, which I don't really see from the energy of this cards, then that would represent just having to tackle things by yourself this month and being able to get it done. All right. I just want to say that there is a lot of beauty to this placement, because when I see this, it's almost like you might find yourself joking about the hard times this month, trying to keep a positive spirit. And honestly, there's a lot of confidence here. One of the themes of Maga I have seen is just being confident within yourself and having a sense of self-love. I'm not saying Maga people just come out and they're confident, but they get to a place where they are confident being who they are, and they do not care what other people think. And so this month, you may find your self-esteem growing and feeling more confident in yourself. And you may even find yourself pulling away from people pleasing and not being afraid to, you know, lose others if they are not in line with who you are. And, you know, if you're a person who is more so in a, what's the word I want to say? More so in a want to have fun, relax move, Maga is a really great placement for that. I think I did a, what do I call it? An Instagram post, a study on Maga people, and there was a connection with, I don't know what we can say on YouTube, but maybe so adult intimacy liberation, if we could say that, just being true yourself. You know how women get shamed a lot for their sexuality? Well, Maga is about pushing back on that and saying, I am who I am. I should be allowed to be, you know, intimate with whoever, and I am not ashamed of that. And I'm connecting this to more so of a, you know, fun, relaxed time, because it's about embracing the wildness and the freedom that life has to offer, especially if it's not hurting anyone else. MAGA is about pulling away from those sort of like shaming tactics of society used to keep you in a bind. Okay, this is like freedom of expression, which makes sense why MAGA is in Leo. So there is a lot of expressing yourself, and maybe even a lot of pushback on that, because we have this King of Wands reverse. The King of Wands reverse I have often seen to represent like wanting to get things done, but then there's delays and challenges. Or sometimes it can represent, you know, feeling a little bit of a loss or a sense of direction. It's like, okay, I have a lot of skills, I have a lot of responsibilities on my plate, but there's a twist and I may not know exactly how to tackle them. I might be too afraid to ask for help, or maybe I'm overly confident in my being able to accomplish things, and so maybe certain things I drop the ball on. There is a sense of strong pride, and when it comes to MAGA, and a lot of MAGA people I've noticed may not always want to admit when they're at fault, or they may want to tackle more than they can take on, which I have seen quite frequently with MAGA people, where it's a bit of like, I'm afraid to ask for help. And so this month you may even be holding back when it comes to asking for help, and maybe you're worried those people won't do things as well as you, or you're worried that they won't come through, or they'll disappoint you in some way. But whatever the case may be, this is definitely about allowing those people to come in and fulfill their role and help you when needed. I will say the King of Wands can be a little bit frustrated, but then also in a positive sense, this can be redirecting your energy and towards yourself. Maybe you're used to catering towards other, as I mentioned before, with like the people pleasing that can happen with MAGA. And now it's time to focus your energy on the things that would be beneficial towards you, on the things that make you happy, on the things that you are interested in. So that is something that more than likely could be happening this month. Maybe you have some old ambitions that you never really got to tackle because life has, you know, pulls you in different directions. And now it's time to refocus and to think about those things. But as I said, this is a month of hustle, getting things done, making sure that you are rising to that next level. As I already mentioned, with the ambition between the connection with MAGA, very much like an employee of the month card. All the MAGA people I have ever met are usually extremely hard workers. They might have one job but then have a side business. They're always looking at ways to grow and develop and expand. And honestly, this may even be a month of honesty, where you're opening up about certain things or feelings or thoughts that you may have. That might create some conflicts, but it'll be fine, because I already mentioned with this Venus in Libra, it's like you're finally getting to have these conversations that need to be had. Okay, so that is what I want to say for you, pile number 3. Hopefully this resonates, and if not, you know, feel free to choose a new pile. I do wish you the best on your month. I have a feeling that things are going to work out in the end, and you're going to make some amazing strides. And honestly, it might feel good to just actually do more things for yourself. Okay, so that is what I have. And don't forget, I post every Thursday. If you would like a private reading from me, I do offer those periodically. So check the description bar and come to the lives. If I'm not offering private readings, you can also come to the lives. I go live every week. That's Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Check out the time in the, what do you call it? The post section. I can't even think what it's called right now, but you know where it go, where those posts go. And that is what I have, and I'll see you next time. Au revoir. Hey pal, number 4, let's get started on your June reading. So we have the 2 of Wands representing you, Judgment representing finances, the 8 of Cups representing work, we have Justice representing love, and we have the 6 of Swords representing just the general feel of the month. We also have our Astro dice and etc. cards. Let's start with the dice. We have the Sun in the 5th house in Aquarius. We're getting the Sun a lot. And let's pull these etc. cards to get a full reading. Because you know I love being highly detailed, especially for the monthly readings. which I know you astronauts love. Let's pull a card. We have Ashleisha. All right, let's start off with these astrodites. So Sun in the 5th house in Aquarius. This is kind of just representing wanting to branch out and maybe have a little bit more fun. Obviously, the 5th house shows some interest either in downtime. It doesn't necessarily have to be like concerts and venues and things along the lines of that. 5th house is just what you like doing for fun. And so when we see this come up for the month of June, there is a strong focus on things that you like to do for fun. So I love to throw these astrodites myself for how my day would be. Obviously experimenting for other people and myself are great ways to have a better understanding of the energies. And from my understanding, Sun in the 5th house is time with friends, possibly time with family, if your family is like your bestie and something along the lines of that. And enjoying yourself. You are looking to take care of yourself this month. You are looking to relax. You're looking to kind of wind down a little bit. Maybe you've been a bit anxious lately. So the 5th house energy is going to bring about more creativity. It's going to bring about more relaxation. It's going to bring about more focus and drive if you have a sort of business or any like stocks. 5th house would be like stocks and things along the lines of that. Anything that involves sort of like taking a risk or taking a gamble, or that might have an inconsistent income. Thus you have like writers and painters and all sorts of like entertaining, kind of like the liberal arts category is pretty much all of that 5th house energy. And so there's a month that you are making sure that you are attuned to that side of yourself. And maybe even for some of you, if you're single, this could represent taking another look at possibly dating or going out more or being even asked out on dates or having a couple flirtations, possibly even a new crush, because we know the Sun connects to new beginnings, right? So that is one of the strong possibilities that is coming up here. The Sun is going to bring about some new experiences possibly. So maybe you're trying something new by yourself or with friends. I say by yourself because the Sun can bring about an element of independence. And in Aquarius, it's just known for being like an independent, let me do my own thing type of sign. So that's why I'm emphasizing that for a second time. The good thing about this the good thing about this combination is that the Sun is naturally the ruler of the 5th house. And so I know that this month is going to have some good downtime, self-care, having a great time moments where you're going to feel really relaxed and elated. So like I said, if you have been feeling a bit like off or anxious lately, well, now you're going to get some more time in June to actually loosen up, possibly even being celebrated for some of you. I don't know if some of you have your birthday in June. The only reason I say celebrated because the 5th house can relate to celebrations. This can also represent going to celebrations. Doesn't have to necessarily mean celebrating yourself, but you know, when I think Sun in the 5th house, I think ego, and ego is very self-centered. So that's why I mentioned that. And then this cannot be an official celebration, and possibly you're just kind of rewarding yourself. As I mentioned, because this is the ending and the beginning of things, I do want to emphasize that maybe for some of you, you are graduating or you are starting a possible new journey when it comes to education or learning or something along the lines of that. The 5th house does connect to all of those matters, connects to public speech, connects to children. How can I forget? The Sun connects to children as well. So if you have children, this is a month that is going to be focusing on maybe even pushing your children to be more independent, or possibly, since we have the sign of Aquarius here, you might be trying to teach them a little bit of patience. That sign has a heavy theme of patience. as well as sort of like sacrificing for other people, as it is the water bearer, okay? So maybe you find yourself making some sacrifices of your time, your energy, etc., for your children this month more than usual, or even, like I said, a romantic partner. But that's something to be said. I will say, we have to keep in mind that the sun is a mild malefic, and though it does absolutely love being in the 5th house, and it doesn't mind the sign of Aquarius that much, I do want to say that this can mean, like, maybe you have some kids and they get on your nerves this month. Like, maybe you're like, man, this kid, I can't stand them. They don't listen to me at all. They're always doing their own thing. They are so hard-headed. So there may even be a bit of those moments this month for those of you who have children, and maybe that can even be a tiff with a romantic partner or even possibly a friend. And then, as I mentioned before with the education, if we're going to talk about the things that are not so pleasant, yeah, some frustrations with the education school system. If you were involved in some sort of study group or at school, or even just taking a course, this can represent just saying, oh, I'm feeling so frustrated. The great thing about the sun, though, as I said, it is exalted in the 5th house, and the sun actually, especially in the sign of Aquarius, does represent kind of doing well. The sun, if we just read it as being in Aquarius, it can represent sort of like gains from work, and a sun ruled type gain would be like recognition from work or friends, which is why I kind of mentioned the celebration thing. It doesn't even have to be that literal. It could just literally mean that your friends are there to support you and they're recognizing your value. So that's something that I want to throw out there for this month. I kind of threw a lot in there. I'm gonna have to speed things along. So we have the Two of Wands when it comes to where you are currently, and maybe even a little bit of the energies of this month. The Two of Wands is a very great card. I love it because it's very individualistic. It's planning and looking ahead. It has a vision of how it wants things to be. It's sitting, it's waiting, it's watching, and that is more than likely your energy right now. You're planning your next move. And because we have this Two of Wands, the Mr. or Mrs. I walk to the beat of my own drum. Well, this is all about you deciding the correct path for you to go in. And it's a very, very different path than those around you. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten the Two of Wands. The only thing about the Two of Wands, though, that can be a teeny bit frustrating is it is that waiting period. And who likes waiting? Nobody likes waiting. So you're probably in a moment of time where you're at a pause. And you have to do a lot of thinking, and you have to do a lot of deciding, and maybe even some research. And if you are planning to make some moves in a different direction, whether that's you're like relocating to a different apartment, whether that is you moving on from a relationship, moving on from a job, which it looks like that's probably going on here with this, this Eight of Cups. It is all about trying to think about your next move, okay? So it's kind of interesting because we do have that Two of Swords energy that is kind of similar to the Two of Wands. The only thing that's different is with the Two of Wands, there's a bit of more confidence and decisiveness. And it's almost like the Two of Wands is like saying, I'm just waiting for the right mood to strike, versus like a Two of Swords is just like, hey, I'm a little confused. I need to think about things a little bit more. The Two of Wands is just like, I just need that opportunity. I just need that opportunity, and I am ready to go. And it's interesting on this deck, we sort of have this crying baby in the wilderness. And, you know, babies always represent new energy, a new opportunity that is coming in. And because the baby's crying and this figure in the background, which maybe is like an ancestor spirit, I'm throwing in this whole story, but but it's kind of like saying there's a feeling of like even possible dread of like what could happen next, because there's a little bit of uncertainty. But I think that's okay, because we know that in life, not everything is certain. So yeah, maybe you feel a little bit like, oh man, I am ready to tackle the world. I'm ready to make a bold move. But a part of me is just a little bit scared because I'm new to the avenue that I'm branching off into. And as I was saying before, because this naturally leads into each other, the Eight of Cups is all about moving on to the next stage. So whoever you are who've chosen this pile, it looks like you are done with whatever work, job, career thing that you are in, okay? This is all about, I'm sick of this situation and I'm ready for the next move. For those of you who even may be unemployed, this may be like peak frustration of just like, no, I've got to get out of this state. I have got to move on to a different place. And the Eight of Wands shows me that you're making those moves this month, okay? We go from this period of waiting to actually moving in and putting those plans and thoughts into action, and you're not wasting any time. You're off to the next best thing. Now, the cards aren't necessarily saying that you are securing the job. The Eight of Cups is an energy of mobility, but not necessarily an energy of stability, okay? So I just want to say that, and what I mean by that is that it represents moving on from a place, but it doesn't represent, hey, I've landed there yet. So I don't want to just come out and say, oh, you guys are going to get a new job or anything like that. Not really, but it shows that you're done and you're over it and you are making moves to actually get out of there this month. I don't know what's going on, but I think that you have recognized that there are just better opportunities out there for you when it comes to your job, your careers, or whatever situation that you find yourself in. Like I said, if you are fun employed right now, then this is like, hey, I'm ready to get out of this state. I'm trying to build to a new place. I'm trying to go on and maybe find a part-time job or work for myself or do something along the lines of that. But whatever the case, this is a move forward. The Eight of Cups is all about saying au revoir, farewell, goodbye. So like I said, maybe some of you actually are taking that move and transitioning and getting to that new place, but I'm not going to sit here and say that that is the same thing for all of you. And it's very interesting here because we have this Ashleisha energy. And one thing that I have noticed about Ashleisha energy, that I've noticed about Ashleisha's energy is that they actually go through a significant amount of changes within their lives, which is not surprising because they're like the last in the first set of nakshatras, okay? All of the Mercury ruled nakshatras come last in the 3 sets. So they're like that point of change. They're at that Gandanta point that we call in Vedic astrology. So what that means is Ashleisha individuals often go through a lot of pivotal transformations. And what I've noticed about that transformation process is that quite often I've seen a lot of Ashleisha people be a little bit resistant to change. Okay, now I'm not saying that's necessarily you, because this is just like the vibes of the month or even possibly events that could happen, but it can represent maybe those around you a little bit more resistance to your growth, to you developing, to you moving into a better place like this Eight of Cups suggests. So I do want you to keep that in mind this month. I always like to give you lovely astronauts the warning, but it is a good thing. Ashleisha is very transformative. Like I said, those changes happen whether they want it to or not. So there will be some developments in those areas, in certain areas of your life where you're pushing forward, where you're making either gradual or extreme changes. It's not certain with Ashleisha. It can go either direction. And for some people, I think your decisions may seem controversial, or it may seem like they don't quite understand, or they're not on the same wavelength as you. All right, so that's something to keep in mind. But the great thing that I love about Ashleisha is these Mercury ruled nakshatras are all about confidence. You know, one thing that I've seen with Australasia individuals is they, even if they don't feel the most confident, they don't feel the most beautiful, they don't feel the smartest, they will take on that role, and they will sort of like put on that mask, I guess you could call it, and present themselves in a way where they are the most confident. They're the type of people to say, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, this is the best thing of all time, I'm the best nurse you've ever spoken to, I'm the best doctor you've ever, you know, seen. Like, it's very much like hype themselves up. And I really feel like, because there is a little bit of like some hesitation, like I said, what I saw on the Two of Wands, because there's that anticipation of growth and movement forward, then you're hyping yourself up a lot this month. You are trying to step into a place where you're feeling confident, and I'm loving to see it. And that makes a lot of sense when we have this sun in the 5th house, right? Because the sun loves that 5th house energy, and the sun is connected to our confidence. The sun is connected to our ego and things along the lines of that. So there's that expansive nature of the ego and self-esteem and things along the lines of that. Australasia is also really good at thinking on their feet. So there may even be a couple of scenarios when it comes to having to make some quick on the fly decisions. And I will say, obviously, it's because it's a Mercury ruled nakshatra, then it is very conversation heavy, unless it is more of like an intimate relationship where you know each other well enough that, you know, you can read each other's body languages. But for the most part, it is very much a wordy nakshatra. You'll see Australasia people be highly talkative. They will talk your ear off. Not all of them, but it is a common pattern that I have seen. And you may even find some situations where you feel like going dancing, or even being in some sort of situation where you're like, oh, someone has invited me to a dance class or something like that. Just notice that, because Australasia connects to dancing. Don't know why. I'm just here to give you the facts, but it is all about using your ability to, what's the word? Make connections and relationships to get ahead, while at the same time being able to adequately market yourself. It's like, how can I stand apart in the competition sphere? How can I make myself known? And at the same time, it's also a place, an nakshatra that deals a lot with themes of, ooh, there's so much. But it deals a lot with themes of self-confidence. Self-confidence is a key thing for nakshatra individuals. And a little bit of like out with the old and in with the new. I see that theme heavily with nakshatra individuals, sort of representing the transformations that they may go through within their lives. It's an extremely transformative nakshatra. I mean, seriously, it is, I think they even have it on the car, regeneration. Yeah, that's exactly the best way to describe it. They'll go through different stages in their life and different periods, and they all seem so extreme, like one thing after the other. I've seen a lot of emotional intelligence through the Mercury ruled nakshatra placements. They are the type to, ask questions like, why do you do that? Or why do you think that way? And they like to go a little bit deeper. And so this month you may even find yourself going a little bit deeper, or having more meaningful and impactful in conversations with those around you, or even maybe with yourself. You know, maybe it's just a time where you feel like you need to go deeper and address certain things that you have been hiding inside of you. And the last thing I want to say about this card in particular is it shows a sign of restraint when it's at its highest. Restraint and discipline, the ability to have that strong sense of emotional regulation and thinking long term, meaning you are willing to make sacrifices, sacrificing the small things, or not the small things, sacrificing the short-term gains for the long-term gains. I think that is a consistent thing that I have seen with Ashleisha individuals. And that is something that I want to encounter. And then the last thing I want to say, just as a warning, because you guys know I love to give a warning, is that Ashleisha energy can attract a lot of snippy individuals, meaning just a lot of like evil eye energy. And so you might even find people got a little bit of beef with you this month. So just throwing that out there. People might say some snippy comments, okay? I have to say that there's an element of, maybe even obsessiveness for some of you guys. Maybe you guys are taking on some obsessive qualities and you're focusing really strongly on something, or possibly another situation where you might even find that someone might be a little bit too much in your business and you're like, hey, can you back off a little bit, right? So things along the lines of that. We didn't even go to finances, which is another signal for regeneration, because we have judgment here, right? Where your finances are being reawakened and you're taking on a different approach when it comes to finances. And it's interesting because we got that sun in Aquarius, and Aquarius rules gains from work, whether that's recognition or whether that's monetary gains, whatever the case may be. And the sun in Aquarius can represent new gains from work, not without putting an effort towards it. Because I say that because the fifth house is third from the third, and the third house is the house of efforts. And so fifth house is the higher version of the third house. So it is a bigger amount of effort. So I want to throw that in there, but this can potentially represent new gains when it comes to the financial areas. Like I said, some of you actually may be getting into that new job this month, but others of you, this may just be like taking a finer tooth comb when it comes to your finances. For me, when I see judgment connected to finances, it's always been good. When you think about it literally, and it's like wiping the slate clean, maybe you pay off some credit card debt. And then for some of you guys, it doesn't have to be credit card debt. I guess it could be any debt. And that's like, oh, I finally wiped the slate clean. I don't have to stress about paying certain interest fees or paying back certain loans and things along the lines of that. I'm not too stressed about this. I have an opportunity for a fresh start. And then, as I was saying, I like to see judgment when it comes to the money placement, because it connects to Pluto, and Pluto is one of those planets that connects to finances, and it connects to big money. I can assure you that it is very, very heavy financially. Ashleisha as well is another placement that connects to money as well. The Mercury Nakshatra placements in general, and particularly maybe Jesta, but I've seen a lot of Ashleisha people be able to use their wits and use their smarts and abilities to learn the best ways to gain money for themselves. They learn how to use their skills to the best of their abilities to climb their way to the top. All right. And that is something that I have seen. I mean, just with my own eyes. And from this understanding here, what I see from this spread here, what I see is a possibility of maybe even a come up financially. I'm not going to sit here and say you're becoming billionaires or millionaires, but maybe there's some surprise things when it comes to the financial areas that are positive. Maybe you get a gift you like, because when I talk about finances, I'm not just talking about just typical money that you might gain, or investments and things along the lines of that, though you might even see some uptick within investments if you have any, even if it's just a 401k. Well, when I talk about this finances, I'm talking about it from an astrology perspective. I'm talking about general second house things, which is like your self-esteem, which is about your possessions, things that you own, which is also about family as well. And so there can actually be even some changes and restructuring and transformations within the family environment as well. I've also gotten judgment to represent taking an examining approach, meaning sort of like this Two of Wands energy, where you are sitting back and looking at things and deciding what decisions that you want to make. However, I will say the Judgment card is a little bit more reflective than the Two of Wands. So this isn't just like, oh, I thought about this for 15 minutes and now I've moved on. No, it's like you've deeply examined something. And so you might even be deeply examining your finances or even your possessions, okay? With Pluto going through the second house, it causes going through the second house, representing this energy of the second house, and it causes you to take a transformative or new look as to not only how you gain money, but how do you gain certain valuables. Like, it's like you decide, do I really need this many chapsticks? Do I really need a $500 bottle of perfume? Like, it just makes you re-examine what it is you value. Or maybe it's the opposite, where you're like, no, I'm sick of buying things that are cheap and I would like to buy things that are higher quality. Maybe you're used to Shein and then you're like, you know what? I actually would like to buy, I guess I'll just say Dolce & Gabbana. I don't know. But I would like to buy something that's more expensive and things along the lines of that, or vice versa. So you could be deciding that you want to invest in more quality things. And that could be a decision that you are making throughout this month. Either way, I would say suggest possibly some financial surprises with this Pluto representing your second house for sure. Not always, but possibly. I've just noticed that, and from also my studies in particular and hearing people's stories of Pluto's in their second house, they talk about the major ups and downs when it comes to finances. And maybe I want to say for some of you, it could be ups and downs financially this month, like big wins, big losses. Pluto does bring about an extreme energy. But like I said, I usually like to see Pluto when it comes to the second house because it's like a money planet and this is like a money house. And ultimately, it's leading you to a better place. And like I said, this can also cause you to re-examine your relationship with money, and then also re-examine relationships with family, or even just the relationship that you have with yourself. Maybe you find you are talking more down to yourself, and now you're like, I think I need to come in with a fresh perspective and actually think about all the good qualities that I have as a human being, instead of focusing on potential flaws, which we all have. Judgment is all about forgiving. And so when we talk about this being in our place of like self-esteem, it's like I'm forgiving myself and allowing me to be human. I'm allowing myself to make mistakes. I'm showing empathy for myself. Man, I talk too much, guys. I talk too much. Let's get into love and the Six of Swords, and we got to close this out because I'm talking a lot. There's so much more I want to say, but I'm like, nah. I've already went really long with another pile. So justice when it comes to love it can have a dual meaning. Justice when it comes to love can be very good because it connects to Libra, and Libra is all about relationships. Where was I before I was so rudely cut off by my camera? Got a little overheated. So with justice, as I was saying, there's a duality to it. Now, this is the before tarot deck, so the justice card has not picked up their sword yet. They have a dove sort of floating near their hand, and we all know doves mean sort of like peace and I guess happiness in a way, and celebration. Don't people sort of release doves at weddings too? So things along the lines of that. Partnership, leaning into that aspect of the the Justice card. But as I was saying, with the duality to it, from a traditional meaning, Justice can represent sort of recognizing patterns of behavior. So if you have your partner and you're in a relationship of some sort, whether that's a marriage or, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, boyfriend, whatever the case may be. Something like that. This is like saying, okay, my partner is following sort of the typical predictable patterns that they normally follow this month. On the other hand, the other side of Justice can literally quite mean that someone is here to make a fair trade, to have a conversation. And instead of leading with from a place where it's like we're defending ourselves and we're going back and forth trying to make our point, this is listening with a compassionate understanding and ear. Justice is leaning less into logic and more so into the side of being understanding. I feel like Justice is always looking for balance, but it's not necessarily always looking for union. But with the symbol of the dove there, sort of near Justice's hand, and the sword on the floor, then this looks like you and your partner are looking to sort of understand each other's perspective, or at least be willing to hear each other out if there have been some disagreements, or if there have been some moments where you guys felt the communication could have been better. This is a moment to talk things out. Justice is always highly communicative. Like, I've gotten Justice plenty of times to represent like, oh, how was, you know, this situation's gonna go, and then the person ended up being, you know, very talkative, very detailed, like a perfect guide, you know, like it's very much conversational and giving an understanding of their perspective or what needs to be done or expectations and things along the lines of that. Things are just clear. And so there's an opportunity for that if you are within a relationship. For those of you who are single, it's possible you might meet someone. I mean, like I said, Justice does connect to partnerships, and on this Before Tarot deck, they're leaning in from a place of compassion. You know how the older you get, and this may not be everyone, but the older you get, the more you spot BS quickly. And so you sort of like lead into a date or a romantic encounter already looking for your BS detectors, like the traditional Justice card. Well, with this sort of Justice card on the Before Tarot deck, they don't have that sword yet. They haven't picked it up yet. Maybe they're at a recess, you know, it's not needed. And they're leaning more into the empathetic humanitarian side to themselves. And so this is kind of like being a little bit less judgmental of people's flaws if you are meeting people, and trying to have an understanding of their perspective. This doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to let anyone into your life. It just means that you are more willing to maybe let down your guard a little bit. And Justice does connect to that sort of ordeal. As I mentioned, there is a possibility of meeting someone. We do also have the Sun in the 5th house energy. So, you know, it may even feel like you want to spring into action. You feel that strong desire towards unionship, especially this month. And because Justice rules karma and has a connection to the past, there's a possibility that maybe someone from your past can come up. Or maybe you could find yourself reflecting on the past a little bit. It may just be re-entering your thoughts when it comes to love and relationships. And you're sort of looking at the emotional toll, or the emotional impact, I shouldn't say, because it's not always a toll, the emotional impact that that relationship has had on you in general, and maybe even in particular how you will move forward within your romantic life. You could also be more gentle with yourself when it comes to even possibly forgiving certain, things you may view as mistakes or decisions that you may have made. If you've been hard on yourself, especially when it comes to love. This is about even confronting yourself with kindness, or feeling, understanding of your past experiences, or even looking at another person's perspective or your ex-partner's perspective within a relationship. But either way, this is an energy which invites wanting to get to know people better. And so there may be that sense of longing for partnership this month, or even wanting to just like connect, go on dates, things along the lines of that. And maybe even some of you are getting married this month. I mean, that's possible. Justice is connected to marriage, obviously. So maybe some of you are tying that knot, or even thinking about tying that knot, like an engagement or something like that, or planning a wedding. That's the energy of justice as well. Justice, though, typically represents fairness, okay? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you get your way and things are great. And what I mean by that when it comes to love is that sometimes, at least sometimes what I've observed is people don't want to date themselves. And I'm not going to give any examples because I don't want to insult anyone. But, sometimes people are in situations that they would not accept in someone else. Or, they might look a certain way and they won't accept that look in somebody else. Or they might have certain things going on in their life and they wouldn't accept that from someone else. But justice here is letting me know that you're going to attract someone who is that mirror reflection. And maybe you don't see it, or maybe it's less obvious, but they will have at least some qualities that will mirror you. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, Now, I do want to say with friends and family, similar perspectives, because this is about love in general, and I consider loved ones in the love category. Similar, it can just represent having those conversations about relationships and the past, and thinking about where you would like to see yourself within a relationship. Possibly, like I said, even reflecting on the impact of certain relationships and decisions. And this can also just represent having a lot of, I would say, serious conversations with friends. And hopefully, and this may be a small portion of you, hopefully this is not true, but this can also represent some legal troubles when it comes to things that you love. And that can apply to different areas. Like you could have a business and that could have legal trouble. You could have some beef with, going to court over like a child or child support. That would be like, oh, this is the love category, and we're in court over someone that I love, which would be my child or something like that. But I'm going to say that's just maybe for a small portion of you, while the others, this is more conversational. This is more to do with same old. We're just doing what we always do, hanging out, kicking it with the friends, kicking it with the fam. And lastly, to summarize this whole thing, we have the Six of Swords. And they are just getting up to go on their journey, which kind of solidifies the energy that I was picking up mostly, from the beginning of the reading, and also when we started talking about the work environment, where you're starting to really make some strides at moving into another direction. This is like I've already packed my bag and I booked the flight, right? I'm out the door. You can't stop me. You're moving to that new place. I've already mentioned the transformation aspect from the judgment card, from Ashlesha's perspective. You know, these two things are particularly very transformative energies. And so I know it's all about you moving to a new place. And something that you may find yourself doing is really looking at the breakdown of how you can make this move happen, as Ashlesha is highly detailed oriented. So you may find yourself needing to look at every single detail and read all the fine print when it comes to this new transitional phase in your life. Like I said, if you're moving into a new apartment, then yeah, make sure you read that full contract on the lease that you are signing. Make sure you have a good understanding of, you know, where all the amenities are, where are the emergency services and things along the lines of that. Make sure you have the right insurance. Read the insurance and what it actually provides. Like, this is making sure you have all those details ready. If you are going to a new job, make sure you do your research, go to that Glassdoors, look at every review. Ashlesha energy is quite intensive when it comes to knowing the small details. That's very important. Ashlesha's energy is like, I read the label on my food type of energy. And that type, you may be coming with that energy this month, and I feel like that might help you in your transition. Or maybe you might even be finding yourself, like, let's say, in an environment where paying attention to those small details are very, very important. Okay? So that could be a theme for this month. It could make or break this move forward in a easy or not so easy way. But I will say that, you know, a part of you may be a little bit sad that you're moving on to that next stage. Part of you may be a little bit nervous, but I know that you are determined to give away. We have so many cards about leaving the past behind, letting bygones be bygones, saying goodbye, transformation, and going to that next stage of regeneration. The Six of Swords saying, I'm out of here. The Two of Wands, one foot is already out the door. So you are ready to make a big move. This month you're making so many different changes. You are planning in so many ways. You are thinking about where you want to end up in the long term. You're focusing on moving away from the past when it comes to your relationships, maybe even thinking of like breaking karmic cycles. That is a strong possibility with the combination of these cards. You are trying to find maybe a new environment, maybe a new neighborhood, maybe a new workplace, because sometimes the sword energy, since it's air sign energy, can talk about like your local everyday environment. Granted, that is heavily Virgo, but Gemini also connects to your everyday environment as well. And that's an air sign. So it's like, I'm moving away from this environment. I'm going to smoother waters. I haven't quite hit the waters yet, but everybody and their mom knows that I have submitted my time for vacation. They know I'm packed. They know everything's booked. They know I'm heading out the door. And so you know it. Everyone knows it. People can see you're moving on. People can see you're going to that next stage. And yes, this month is going to be a little bit somber at some points. Not the whole month. Not the whole month. Like I said, we have a lot of fun here. But at some points, it may be a little bit somber just because it's just a change. And you're just like, I've been doing this for X, Y, and Z amount of time. And now I've got the transition to this new place. And I know it's going to be better for me. But, you know, it takes a minute. And also those transition periods tend to be a little bit sticky, don't they? I don't think too many people like the transition periods. We like the results, but maybe the transition is not so great. It's kind of like you know, I'm going and getting open heart surgery. I don't like the surgery, but I like the results of the surgery, and the surgery would be the transition. And so that's what this month feels like a little bit. The transition phase is like, oh man, I got to deal with X, Y, and Z. I got to prep for X, this, and that. I've got to wrap this up. I've got to do this thing. I've got to say goodbye to this person. I've got to get rid of this thing. You know, it doesn't, whatever this transition that you're going through, I'm just trying to throw examples out there because there's so many things that could be changing. Definitely you're moving away from this job. That's clear. And maybe you're literally moving. Maybe some of you are literally moving, and that's a big thing. And then lastly, I'll just mention travel, just because we have so many cards about moving away. And, you know, this is June and a lot of people go on vacation in June. So this can also potentially just show that you're traveling this month, and that's the vibes. And or you're just planning to travel. You're like, I'm ready to go on vacation. I'm ready to have some fun. I'm getting away from these wild people around me. No more work, no more family, no more school, whatever. I just need a different space. I need a different space. So that is what I have for you, pile number 4. Hopefully this resonates. If not, feel free to choose a new pile or maybe a new reader. Don't forget to come back and let me know how your June is going. I would greatly appreciate it. And also, I go live on the weekends. That's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if you want to ask me a question, go there. And if you want a private reading, I offer those periodically. So check the description bar. And that's all I have for you. Au revoir. Hey pal, number 5, let's get started on your reading for the month of June. We have the 3 of Wands representing you, the 5 of Wands representing finance, the Page of Cups reverse representing career. We have the 9 of Cups representing love, and we have the 8 of Swords representing just a general vibe for the month. I also have my Astro dice, so let's roll them. We have Pisces, the 11th house, Saturn. So Saturn in the 11th house in Pisces. And lastly, we have these Nakshatra cards. So let's get into this, just shuffling them really quickly. Okay, we have the Shaka. All right, so when I look at these cards and spreads and energy here, let's start off with the dice, first of all. So we have Saturn in the 11th house in Pisces. Talk about a slow transformation. So for the month of June, it looks to me as if you are making strides towards your goals. But you know how Saturn is. Saturn is so slow. Saturn likes to take their time. Saturn is like very nitpicky. A lot of hard work and effort going into the career gains, or gains from your goals, I should say. Because it doesn't have to be career gains. Gains from changes in title and things along the lines of that. For example, if my title went from, you know, average everyday girl to superstar, there would be some gains from that, right? I would gain attention. I would gain a larger audience, which the 11th house rules. I would gain probably some free stuff like brand deals and things along the lines of that. But that's like the 11th house. It's what you gain from achieving your goals, from obtaining certain titles, things along the lines of that. So when we talk about that for the month of June, this can feel like the gains are a little bit slow to come in. It may feel as though it's taking some time to receive certain recognition. It's taking some time to, you know, make some more money if that is a goal of yours, which usually that's a goal of most people. You have to put in a lot more effort into accomplishing certain things along the lines of that. Or it can feel like, how do I explain this? Saturn in the 11th house, for some people, can pull you a little bit away from your friends as well. It can be a placement, though, in which you gain particular friendships And the friendships can be lasting, or they can just be highly impactful. Like they really change your perspective or become like a pivotal moment within your life, that time period. So it may feel like this month that you are making some very pivotal connections, that you might spend a little bit less time with friends. You're focusing on gaining value from your work environment, your career aspirations, or even if you have some sort of hobby that you're trying to turn into a job or make money out of, etc., then this would be like things are moving along slowly. Don't get me wrong though. Saturn in the 11th house is good. Saturn is naturally the ruler of the 11th house, means it's naturally the ruler of the dreams come true and the hopes and wishes. And so because it's naturally ruling that, it would indicate that you are getting something you want this month. And we even have the 9 of Cups here to display for the love pile. Now, I don't want to get into that yet, but one moment, just give me one moment. So it can just represent gaining something that you have worked hard for, some dream. And I say dream because we have Pisces. You know, I'm being very literal here. But Pisces energy isn't just always, you know, dreams and fantasies or delusions and things along the lines of that. Pisces energy is connected to self-reflection. It's connected to resting and vacationing and being away from work and taking a break and taking a moment to pause and not having to be caught up in the hustle and bustle. And so maybe this month feels a little bit like you're also taking some moments to alleviate yourself from potential stressors, where you're taking some time to yourself to potentially restructure environments so that you don't have to work so hard. That's another thing. And quite possibly, this is you looking at how you can have like long-term success come in. Okay, it's going to connect generally to success. And also, this is a month of addressing any sort of habits or routines or patterns that may be holding you back. For example, you might find yourself, you know, let's say you're a content creator, and I'm just giving an example because I'm creating content right now. And let's say that you find yourself kind of stuck at a certain view count, and you edit your videos a certain way, and you have your certain style. This might say, all right, actually, let me reconsider, you know, approaching my videos a different way. Maybe I'll change the style, or maybe I change the time I post it, or maybe I change my intro or something along the lines of that. But it's like, I'm not going to do the same things because the same things will get me the same results. And that's about addressing sort of those self-sabotaging behaviors or patterns that you find yourself in. And this can also represent addressing any patterns that you find yourself in within friend groups as well, or acquaintances along the lines of that. I'm trying to think back to when Saturn transit my 11th house. Definitely there were breaks away from certain friendships, but there was also a gain of other social groups, and also a new gain of sort of like freedom in a way, or a transformation in my reputation. That was something that the 11th house brought. And also Saturn in the 11th house can represent meeting people who are completely outside your culture, especially with Pisces in there. Saturn doesn't always necessarily connect to foreign entities, but since Saturn connects to separation, it can take you outside of a group that you are not normally associating yourself with. And thus I mean like now you're associating with people who come from a completely different cultural background than you. So that is something that can happen. And like I said, because Saturn is in its own house, it can represent big dreams come true. And for sure that happened to me. You know, when I had that Saturn going through my 11th house, I had this big dream to travel overseas, and it came true. And it was absolutely fantastic. Don't get me wrong, I didn't always make the best decisions while I was there, but I did have a big dream come true, and it did come with a lot of strategy and planning on my part. So keep that in mind with Saturn in the 11th house for this month. Some big dreams could be coming true, could take a little bit of effort, could be some separation from some friends or acquaintances or things along the lines of that, and everything else that I implied. Now let's get into these cards. Now I want to go to the Nine of Cups because I said I would come back to that and it's fresh on my mind. And since we're talking about wishes and dreams come true, we do have this love element here. And when I talk about love, I talk about friends. When I talk about love, I talk about family. When I talk about love, I talk about romantic love. I talk about self-love. I talk about the things that you like doing for fun. That is what the category of love represents for me in these spreads. And so for me, I absolutely love this because on the 4 tarot deck, this person is filling their cups, meaning they're setting themselves up for a good time. They're setting themselves up for success. So it's almost like you are the one who is ensuring that you're making these beautiful dreams come true. So if you're looking for a romantic partner, or if you're in a romantic relationship, this could be you, you know, planning the dates or even dropping the strong hints or like giving the plan and say, I need you to plan this type of date. This is what I'm looking for. I've always wanted to, you know, go for a walk and watch the sunset. I've always wanted to do a drive-in movie. I'm naming simple things, but you know, whatever the case, you've always kind of wanted to do romantically. This is kind of like ensuring that it happens and that it is occurring for you. And this, for some of you, this can definitely mean solo dates as well, where you're making sure that you are taking care of yourself and your wants and your desires and your needs and your wildest fantasies by going on the solo date. You're like, I'm not going to wait for you to fulfill this dream of mine. I've always wanted to get a weekend trip to a spa and stay at a luxury suite and get stretched and get massaged and, you know, go do hot yoga. And I'm gonna make sure that I make my dream come true. And you're setting it up and you're making the plans and you're ensuring that it happens. You're booking whatever trip, you're booking whatever confirmation, whatever ticket that you need to get this done. Whatever reservation you have to make, you're ensuring that it happens. Whether that's in a relationship or, like I said, if you're single and you're taking yourself out on solo dates. I've said this before in readings, but the Nine of Cups generally connects to self-satisfaction. And so for this particular pal, that is why I'm placing a emphasis on the self, especially since on the before tarot deck, you can see the person filling their own cups. This is about doing things that make you feel happy, that make your own dreams come true. So it's not necessarily someone else putting in that time and energy, it's you. And so that is very poignant to say, not saying that someone may not help put these cups up. We don't know who was there before this person filled water in the cups, but for the most part, it is you and your energy making this happen. You are watering your own garden, if I say so myself, and making sure that you have these happy moments. And it could be within your free time, you find yourself doing things that make you feel great about you, that feel like you finally get the opportunity to I don't know, go to a monster truck show if you've always wanted to do it. Whatever it is that your wildest fantasy, I'm just naming some things off the top of my head. You guys probably have a better idea of what you want. And then we do know that the Nine of Cups is like connected to food and things along the lines of that. So maybe some of you have wanted to go to some sort of food festival, or you wanted to dine out at a certain place or eat at a certain place. You know, for example, you know, it's hard to find like onigiri near me. And so being able to find that type of spot would be a very Nine of Cups moment for me. I found a few now, but let me tell you, you got to do some digging. And so that would be like a Nine of Cups moment for me, but like anything along the lines of that. As I said before, because this also represents friendships, well, you're more focused on satisfying yourself with this Nine of Cups energy, but if your friends want to tag along, looks like you might be willing to host, or you might be willing to have them come along, but this is a month of self-satisfaction. I cannot emphasize that enough. And now it's making a little bit more sense. Maybe it is that for some of you, you're taking a break and you're just like, hey guys, this month I'm hiding away in my cocoon. I'm lighting my candles in my room. I am having my own personal spa day. I'm doing a little self-care. Do not call me for this month. So it could be that type of energy that you're coming with, and maybe that's like sort of the separation. And maybe for some of you, you do have some rocky friendships and you're just like, you know what, I'm cutting this person off and now I can finally just breathe and focus on me without any stressors, and I got a lot of happiness going. If you have some sort of hobby that you are, you know, gaining some skill in, gaining some traction in, this would represent hitting some sort of milestone in that area. So I do want to throw that out there. But overall, the Nine of Cups can represent maybe you go out to eat more than usual, and that could also represent takeout as well. Nine of Cups is not a very I'm cooking card. It's not a I'm staying at home being Martha Stewart type card. Nine of Cups, even though this person is filling their own cups, it's very much after I fill the cups, I want the people to cater to me type of energy with the Nine of Cups here. So I do want to throw all of that out there. It can also be a time where you meet someone. I do want to say, for my personal experience, if we're connecting this Saturn in the 11th house with a Nine of Cups experience, then for sure this can definitely represent some sort of dream come true if you've kind of wanted to meet someone who you have connected with. How long the relationship lasts, I don't know, but it does represent possibly having a new crush, but I'm emphasizing more so the self-focusedness, and I'll leave it at that. Let's go to the top. We're in the Three of Wands. You guys are the only pile I started off with the fun love piles first, so that might be a message for you guys. But for you, we have the Three of Wands for your current energy, which represents like sort of maybe researching, exploring, trying new things, being creative. Can represent waiting as well. On this card, you have two hyenas sort of waiting for their moment to strike on this goat. And similarly, this can represent you waiting for the right opportunity to pounce on. Waiting for the right idea to hit you. Waiting for just a new creative wave or energy to come your way. Something more exciting coming. And that could definitely be a place where you're coming from when it comes to this Three of Wands energy. I really like the Three of Wands because the Three of Wands is very idealistic. It leaves rooms for a lot of possibility to occur, but at the same time, it represents that you've already made some moves. You've already made some actions towards something. So it's not a complete, like, I'm not doing anything energy. But it's also like, I'm not doing too much. Okay. So that's why I like the Three of Wands. So it lets me know that you're still in a period of waiting for something to occur, or you're looking forward. You're being a visionary, because the Three of Wands also represents having foresight. So being able to sort of envision your next steps, where you might possibly want to go, thinking of different avenues. For me, and I'm just going to give this example. I always use work. Sorry, guys. It's probably because I'm always working. It kind of reminds me of when you throw out a bunch of different resumes and you wait for someone to hit you back. But you've thrown out resumes to different types of like industries. I've thrown out some resumes to fashion. I've thrown out some resumes to IT. I've thrown out some resumes to the restaurant industry or hospitality. And you're seeing who gets back to you. And based on who gets back to you, you're like, that's the opportunity I'm going to jump on, because that's the sign from the universe. That's the direction I need to be moving. And that's what I mean by the Three of Wands represents taking some action, like applying for resumes, waiting, and then being open-minded to the opportunity that comes at your doorstep. And it doesn't have to be for applying jobs. I'm just trying to give an example to show you how this energy may be working within your life. I do know that the wands represent our own sort of initiatives that we want to enact. It represents bringing in our own personal twist to matters. And so to me, I know that you're in a place, or you're moving from a place of passion. You are trying to move in a direction that will bring you the most excitement and fulfillment. There's a lot of emphasis on happiness and fun and fulfillment that you are wanting to bring more of into your life. And I can sort of see why, because we have this Five of Wands here. And this Five of Wands, especially in this area of finance, can represent struggle, can represent uncertainty. And when I talk about this being the card of finance, I read all my cards from an astrological perspective. I mean, this is Astro-Tarot Research. Though the channel name says Brandy. I'm still going by Astro-Tarot Research. I read it from an astrology and tarot perspective, so this is also self-esteem. And when you have this Five of Wands and a period of in a position of your self-esteem, it can represent a lot of internal battles and a sense of uncertainty. So maybe one day you feel good about yourself and the next day you don't. Maybe one day you feel like you're making the right decision and the next day you feel like you're not so sure that is the best way to do things. A lot of self-doubt there with the Five of Wands. A lot of like arguing with yourself. And it also feels a bit inconsistent. You know what I mean? The Five of Wands is really a card of transformation, like all cards are. And all wands, where am I getting these accents from? And all wands relate to self-esteem. And so right now, you're in a period where you may be trying to figure out the best way to validate your self-esteem. I don't know if that's the right phrasing for it, but finding security within yourself. So you don't have to go through so many doubtful motions, so many days where one day you feel absolutely over the moon and the next day you feel like, oh, you make the worst decisions, you don't know what you're doing, things along the lines of that. A lot of fighting yourself here with the Five of Wands. And then sometimes this can even relate to negative self-talk, because sometimes I get the Five of Wands to represent just haters. Like, oh, this person is a hater, they're attacking me. And so in the position of self-esteem, you might be talking down to yourself. And I hope that's not the case. I hope that's not the case at all. But whatever the case may be, we know that you are coming from an ambitious place. And speaking from the financial perspective, well, this can represent that you are actively trying to transform and change your financial situation. With the Five of Wands there, it's a mess. It's a mess, guys. Come on, you know it. I know it. It's a mess going on in here. What is this? I don't mean to get on you, pal number 5, but the Five of Wands, come on, guys. We could do better than this. And it looks like you are trying to do better than this. You are fighting them bills. You are fighting those payments. You are fighting whatever financial transactions coming your way. And as I mentioned before, the Five of Wands is that thing of uncertainty, right? It's a card of competition. You don't know what your competition is going to do next. You don't know their skill set. Now, you can study them and watch them and do all that, but they can still throw something, you know, a rabbit out of their hat and take you for a loop, right? So there's a feeling of unpredictability when it comes to these finances. Maybe you have forgotten to cancel some subscriptions. Maybe you have to pay for something that you did not expect that you would have to pay for. For example, today my phone has been acting wild. I can't use certain apps, so I'm going to have to pay to get things fixed, right? So, unexpected expense. But there may be quite a few unexpected expenses. And I will say this, your finances, they are going to frustrate you this month. There's no easy way to put it. When it comes to the financial situation. The positive thing is, like I said, is that it's changing because you are actively working on it. Perhaps you are deciding to create a budget. Perhaps you're trying to learn to put a new plan into action. This can also representing finding the best way to manage your finances for you, or the best way to invest, the best way to pay off a certain debt. Learning how to prioritize your expenses, learning to basically better manage your money so that it isn't like an uphill battle, that you're fighting your money, that it should be that your money works for you. I know, stereotypical thing to say, but right now you're working against it. Right now you're fighting your finances or they're fighting you. It's a match, okay? It's definitely that. This can also represent sort of like struggling to find more opportunities to grow in the area of finances, or you're experimenting with ways to grow. When you have the Five of Wands here, when it comes to finances, it can represent having a bit of like competition when it comes to the area in which you make your money. And so you may feel like competition is fierce, and this may be more specifically for people who are more entrepreneurial, because then it's like you are fighting against different contracts, right? I mean, it could be 9 to 5 too, depending on what field you're in. Like if you work in projects and things along the lines of that, your company might bid on a project and they might lose the bid, right? And that's like obviously financially affecting you. But if you work as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to fight for attention so that you can negotiate contracts, negotiate deals, to say, oh, I have this many followers, I've got this many views, like you're bound to get this type of this many purchases based off of my followers and etc. And it's kind of like you have to negotiate and you have to stand out and you have to fight against the competition, right? Because you know, L'Oreal can't give 15 billion makeup contracts to everyone, right? It's only going to go to a certain amount of people. So that's just I'm just throwing in a random company, but nothing to get for or against L'Oreal. I don't know a bunch about them. But that can be part of the energy there. And also I want to say with the second house that it connects to family. And so if there's some beef going on with your family, that's a possible thing for this month. I got to move it along. I'm talking a lot, guys. I always have a lot to say. So when we get to this Page of Cups for the career, it's kind of interesting because when I first put down the Vishaka card, it automatically made me think of career. Vishaka's a pretty intense placement when it comes to the career. And so there can be some emotional upheavals this month. Things that might be going on at work that may upset you. I see a lot of Vishaka stories about, honestly, making sacrifices in particular to follow your dreams. And you'll see this theme a lot in Vishaka movies as well, where they might even give up their love. They might give up time with friends, whatever the case may be. But it's about having to pursue your goals to make sure that they come true. That is why the first card you can see on here as ambition. And so because you are spending a lot of time and energy focusing on making sure that you get to that next level, it's almost like you may be letting your work affect your mood. And this may not be all of you, but this may be some of you, where you may let your work affect your mood. And when you see yourself, not making the strides or the progress that you would like to see, you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't take it. This is awful. And you're doing a lot of venting. You are, journaling your frustrations. You're going home and screaming into a pillow. It can bring a little frustration with the Page of Cups. And then also, this can feel like you've got to go at it on your own in a sense, because there is quite often with Vishaka a journey into the unknown. And what happens is a lot of people may look at you like you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're talking about. You're a dreamer, blah, 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 blah. You may not have, they're like, you don't have what it takes. Just a lot of self-doubt from other people. And you kind of have to follow your own intuition and drive to get to that next level of success. But yeah, the Page of Cups here can represent, you're doubting yourself, maybe even your capabilities at work. If it's not that, you might be feeling a bit unsupportive, feeling like there's no one there to really give you a helping hand. Generally, when the Page of Cups is upright, it's almost like they're extending an olive branch or burying the hatchet. But if you've had any issues or challenges with anyone at work, you can expect them to want to burn bridges, or maybe that's you, because we did already talk about that Saturn in the 11th house makes you want to just kind of burn those bridges sometimes, or it just leads to situations where they might want to burn bridges with you. But those are things that can happen. And it may not even be you. It could be the environment that you're in, where you might find people to be highly reactive, maybe even emotionally immature at work. I'll say the Page of Cups can be a little bit lazy, and it's only, and this is the reverse position, and it's only because they're in an immature mindset. And so it's almost like if you don't feel like doing something, you won't do it, versus a more mature mindset is not to let your emotions rule you and recognize that you have responsibilities. And so you might even find that people in your environment at work, they just aren't very collaborative, or they're not pulling their weight, and it gets to the point where you're just like, I can't work with these people. Like they're not wanting to work. They want to hang out all day. Things along the lines of that can happen. Or even yourself can feel a little bit dejected or disillusioned by work, and you're just like, I don't really like this place. I kind of don't want to give them my time and energy. There's a lot of that going on, and even a feeling of being misunderstood. So I will say work this month is a little bit emotionally rough. If you find yourself crying in the bathroom at some point, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. And then, normally like in a love reading, the Page of Cups reverse can represent some unhealed issues. And if you have like a history with the current job you're at, or even just like with the workforce in general, you might be letting that history affect this month, where maybe some things have happened at this job or previous jobs and they're mirroring this job. And you're just like, you know, it never sat right with me that the company did X, Y, and Z. And you're kind of holding on to that feeling. And it's creating a lot of, what's the word? It's not hatred, but more so like unsettled. What's the word I'm looking for? A sense of, it's not regret. It is that feeling when you hold on to something and you just can't let it go. Resentment. I don't know why it took me so long to find that word, pile number 5. But there's a feeling of like maybe even resentment towards your job this month. Okay? It just feels like they're not offering you anything of value, or it just doesn't feel good in the environment. The energy is off. It's off. It's not the most pleasant environment to be in. In the most positive aspect, this could just be you sort of, you know, daydreaming and goofing off a little bit at work, you know, dilly-dallying and things in the most positive way. But either way, you know, the Page of Cups reverse is kind of like, I'm wasting my time here. There's more fun things I could be doing. I'm thinking about this 9 of Cups stuff over here. I'm thinking about all the good fun that I can have. Now, let's get into the last card, which is the summary energy of this month. We have the 8 of Swords, and the 8 of Swords this is the Before Tarot deck, so they're being tied up by this individual. They've got this sort of knight behind their back. They don't seem to be struggling. There's the feeling or the interpretation of the 8 of Cups, the 8 of Swords, that they can get out the ropes at any time. On this card, the ropes look a little bit tight though, you know, I'm just saying. But to be honest, the person's face is very calm, cool, collected. They don't seem to be worried, at least the lower half of their face. And so for me, it's like you're doing your best to possibly remain calm in a situation that you know is a little binding, is a little tough, and you know maybe that you kind of signed up for it or that it might be, you know, what you have to deal with for now, but it's really just a sign of feeling like until you can move to the next stage, or until you can figure something else out, or something else comes along, you're going to kind of deal with the situation at hand. In a way, I think this month is trying to get you to practice a little bit more restraint in certain areas, because when we have this 8 of Swords, though it represents, you know, confusion and feeling like you can't truly be yourself and things along the lines of that, when I see this on the Before Tarot card, they seem pretty compliant. And not only that, it's like a situation that they want to be in. And the only reason I focus a lot more on the restraint, because sometimes I get that when it comes to the 8 of Swords. I get this feeling of needing to not say everything that's on your mind, not do everything that comes to mind, ignoring those intrusive thoughts. And so this could be an exercising and practicing quieting out the noise, okay? And you're like, oh, I need a little bit of assistance with that or something like that, whatever. Because this month I can see that you're trying to pull in the reins when it comes to the finances. You're trying to, or if there's some arguments with, you know, people you love and care about, you're trying to remain emotionally stable at work. You're not trying to do too much or go too wild or whatever. You're looking out towards the future. At least you're doing that now. And the interesting about Vishaka, it's also about like foresight and vision and looking ahead into the future. If you could gaze into the future. I'm pretty sure Raven Simone is a Vishaka rule placement. So it's like looking ahead and towards the future. So I really think that there's something out there for you that's better. And you know that. I know that. And I think this month is about trying to maybe even figure out the specifics. But as I mentioned, I really feel, because the Eight of Swords is there, this month is all about imposing more limitations on yourself. But they're limitations that are good. These are good restrictions. It's not about breaking free just yet. You're waiting for that opportunity to unravel. For you, you're just like, I just kind of stopped. I just started to create some barriers and limitations on my life to help me move forward, to help me accomplish my goals, to help me move in the direction that I want to go. You're focusing a lot on your inner power and your inner strength this month, especially with Saturn and Pisces energy. That's all about personal development and growth. And I don't know what else I can tell you, pile number 5, but that's currently what I see when I see all of this energy here. I feel like this is a month where there is a lot of reflection going on, but I don't think you're necessarily in the place where you're moving forward this month. This month is very much like a strategic month of planning. This month is very much like, I need to change a few things in certain areas, but I'm not trying to make this full-blown transformation. It's about like keeping steady. Like, that's the energy I want to say. How can I make sure that I stay afloat and I don't lose my mind a little bit or I don't go too far off the deep end? Like, that's what it feels like to me. But, you know, maybe I'm off. You know, you never know. But that's what I have for you, pal. Number 5. I hope that you like the reading. If you want to ask me a question, please join the lives. And then periodically I do offer readings from time to time. So you can check the description bar to see if the form is open. But I probably won't offer readings again till maybe the end of the year. But we'll check. We'll check. We'll see. I post a video every Thursday. If you want to join the live, look at the community tab for the time. And if this pile doesn't resonate, feel free to choose a new pile, or maybe I'm about to read it for you. Either way, I'm happy you stopped by. And that is all for now. Au revoir.